Hello and welcome to the Matt Fradd Show. I am obviously Matt Fradd. It is so good that you are here. Today I will be interviewing Timothy Gordon. You might know of him from his TNT shows with Dr. Taylor Marshall, or maybe you're familiar with his book, The Catholic Republic. We get into a whole host of issues in today's show. We talk about what it's like having a special needs daughter, as he does. We talk about feminism a great deal. We are going to offend a lot of you, but please stick with us and try and hear out what we're trying to say. We talk about the ills in the society, ills in the church today, what we can do to remedy them. We talk about when it becomes too much. You know, you're just constantly kind of taking in media about the church and about politics. You know, at some point, does it get too much? You need to check out. We talk about a bunch of stuff. It was a long interview, but I had a really good time. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little nervous as to how it will be received, but hey, just give us the benefit of the doubt. Now, look, the reason the Matt Fradd Show is even possible is because people on Patreon support us. Thank you very much. And also we have sponsors. So two sponsors we have today, Covenant Eyes and Exodus 90. If you don't yet have Covenant Eyes, you should seriously consider getting it. Go to covenanteyes.com, type in the promo code MattFradd. That's one word. You'll get a month for free. And you might be thinking, well, what is Covenant Eyes? It is, simply put, the best filter and accountability software on the web. It blocks the bad stuff, so if you're tempted to look at porn, or if you have kids and you know that they're going to be exposed to porn, Covenant Eyes will block that. Also, it has accountability software so that if you, or let's say your children go somewhere that they shouldn't, your accountability partner will get a report. Or if you're your children's accountability partner, you'll get a report by email telling you where they've been, what they saw, how long they were on there, what they typed into Google. This is really fantastic software, and I really am convinced that, look, if you struggle with porn, if you're tempted to it in any degree, you just got to get it. It's the best filtering and accountability software on the planet, no questions asked. I've done the research. This pales in comparison to everything else. We have it on all of our devices. And if you have kids, you need to have this as well. Like, we are responsible. You know, it'd be like if you moved into a bad part of the neighborhood and didn't put a lock or a security system in your house and on your doors. In a way, yeah, you would be responsible if something terrible happened to your family. And porn is something terrible, and it is happening to our families. You've got to get Covenant Eyes. You want to get it for free for 1 month? Go to covenanteyes.com and put in the promo code MattFradd, one word, MattFradd. You get a month for free. Try it out. If you don't like it, you can cancel it, but you're going to love it. Again, that's covenanteyes.com. And then when you go there and you sign up, use the promo code MattFradd. You won't regret it. It's absolutely amazing. The second sponsor is Exodus 90. Many people are talking about Exodus 90 today. And what is it? It's an ascetical program for men who want to live heroic lives. I think there's a lot of men out there today who are like, I have a really cushy life, right? And I want to do something. I want to offer up some sacrifice. I want to be more resilient than I am. So Exodus 90 happens. What it is you join a group of men, and for 90 days, you give up things you don't want to give up, right? Like alcohol and sugar and snacks in between meals and things like this. You then take on things like cold showers, going to adoration. It is difficult, but I cannot tell you how many men have come back to me and said it has changed their life. I was just in by Google headquarters recently, and I was chatting with a group there who said they started a Google Exodus 90 group among the co-workers there, and they said their lives have never been the same. Go to exodus90.com, exodus90.com. It's fantastic. All right, here's the show with Timothy Gordon. Enjoy. Good to meet you. Nice. I feel like we have to do this again, even though the camera, we've held each other's hand a lot this morning.
I know, which is, I don't know how I feel about it.
It's really,
I'm kind of excited about that. Is that a problem?
No, you're allowed to be excited. I excite a lot of people. People are usually, I'm huge in the Philippines. Anyway, no, it's really good to have you on the show. I feel like if this was like an official interview, I would have all of my questions written out. I would have read your book. But in all honesty, I don't know a great deal about you. I mean, I've seen you on the Taylor Marshall's thing, the TNT thing, which I have many questions about.
Yeah, many do.
And then I know you wrote some book about America Needs Rome.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to talk about that.
Let's.
Anyway, so I'm just thrilled to have you. It's really good.
It was great to be here. And I've never been to Atlanta, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, still haven't, because we're not in Atlanta.
That's right. I guess not. Is it a suburb or not, Donovan? Joe? Is it? It's a suburb.
The suburb.
I always say I'm from Atlanta. Just because saying, I'm from Cumming, which is north of Alpharetta.
It doesn't work as well.
I don't know why I have to add an American accent when I explain that to people.
Was that an American accent?
I don't know what that was.
That sounded more like a cartoon accent.
It sounded like Kermit the Frog,
Yeah.
But okay, so, and then where do you live? In California somewhere?
Yeah, I live about 100 miles north of Los Angeles. Well, I'll just do the Fran. I live in Los Angeles, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's 100 miles north.
Although, if I lived in LA, I don't know. LA's pretty gross, isn't it?
LA's
Sorry, I don't mean to
a
crap on you.
disgusting sinkhole. No,
Oh, okay.
it's not really my city because I'm the Great Central Valley.
Okay.
Bakersfield, which people love to crap on.
Bakersfield.
Literally
Why have I heard
and
of
figuratively.
Bakersfield? I feel like I've been there before. Anyway.
You probably have. I mean, it's bigger than Pittsburgh, I think bigger than Cincinnati now.
Oh, funny.
It's large. It's just sort of the butt of all the LA jokes. But
really?
Who are they to
Please.
make butts or jokes?
Exactly.
They
Is it the
know
kind of
plenty
thing where
about them.
LA spills out over into all the surrounding cities?
No, LA spills out into everything south, but
Okay.
we're through the mountains.
Cool.
And so we're our own thing. We're the southernmost city in the Great Central Valley. All the pickers, who come to
Okay.
America illegally come to the Great Central Valley.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then you and your wife are from California?
I'm originally from California. My wife was born in Arizona, but we were back and forth, both of us, for differing family reasons between California and Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up middle school, high school, college in Texas. But when I'm talking to Dallasites like Taylor Marshall, they always forget that. I'm like, no, I know what's up in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because that's where my childhood friends were.
And when did you become a Catholic, or have you always been?
I'm a cradle Catholic,
Yeah.
technically, but I've kind of been chased away from the term reversion.
Yeah.
I kind of say conversion now. Around the time, about 10 years ago, around the time of my daughter Abigail's birth, I've always been proud of the Catholic intellectual tradition. It sounds like a stump speech or something.
Yeah.
I've always been proud of
Proud.
the Catholic intellectual tradition. Proud, many years, legacy.
So you would read the Catholic kind of philosophers, theologians, commentators?
I had a pretty good education.
Yeah.
Dallas Jesuit. I got introduced to a lot of the biggies, the heavy hitters.
Okay.
But growing up in the, standard 80s, 90s, whatever, Novus Ordo Church, I don't really know if anyone believed. And no one I went to Dallas Jesuit with, I don't even think practices anymore. I think I know one guy that even, goes to church. So it's kind of standard fare, which brings me back to my point to say, I reverted around, I like an Augustinian reversion, if you were to call it that.
Yeah.
You're to be charitable and say that that's the term that best fits. 28, 29, 30, it's related to my daughter's birth in Rome. But I did go to Rome to study Aristotle and Thomas.
Really?
I always knew they were the Mac Daddies.
Why? Who goes to Rome to study these people? What were you doing to?
Well, I was always interested in philosophy. This is my undergrad thing. But
Yep.
so, I knew there was something with the Catholic intellectual tradition. I was intellectually drawn to it. I did not know, I wasn't experiencing supernatural faith until I was 30. But that even the intellectual tradition thing was a slow kind of build up. I really didn't believe. I can remember being in Catholic school in second grade, just not believing. I can remember being in a different Catholic school in fifth grade, absolutely not believing in religion class. Because, they're taught by liberal, chubby ex-nuns in khaki shorts and Teva sandals. And they're kind of giving you the best sell job that, not to judge a book by its cover, but I love doing that, by the way.
But here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Basically, to do that, they're doing the best that they can do at what their project is, which is from, if you judge a tree by its fruits, their project seems to be doing precisely what they did to all of us in the class, is making us, this is not credible.
Yeah. No, that's kind of how I grew up too. I'm like you. I say that I left the faith of my childhood, but I don't know if I left what I'm not sure I owned. I was baptized, so I was brought into the church, and I had some good examples. But there was so much confusion. Does hell exist? Should I save sex till marriage? Do we even pray?
Right.
All of that. It was so confused. So there was never a manly presentation of the faith. So I didn't have anything to really neglect or reject, rather.
Right.
It's kind of like that.
Well, I think that's what I mean. If you revert, then you're coming home. A homecoming is supposed to be like a thing.
Well, that's your phone.
Oh,
I'm going to
sorry.
turn your phone off.
Sorry, that
No,
might
don't
be
be.
my... all my
That's right.
multifarious
The house is on
Atlanta
fire.
content.
I just turned it off. That'll be
Dude,
fun.
Dude, shut them up.
That'll be fun.
With the house,
Yeah.
get that thing put out. There's nothing to come home to. So it's not an accurate term.
Yeah.
I'm encouraging people that were raised like us. It's very common.
Yeah.
You know, no one's gonna not get that. Like, yeah, of course, I was raised in a Catholic school, so I didn't have the faith. Fulton Sheen said it before this stuff had even set in really badly. So, yeah, everyone understands what we're saying. So we need a new term somewhere between a conversion and a reversion to the somewhat ridiculous version of the faith we were all taught.
Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. Like when I share my story, I just say, I know this sounds really cliche, but I have no way else to say it. I encountered the person of Jesus and my life changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was kind of like that. But I know what you mean, like in a word, how do you say that? So you said when you were 30, you started to experience supernatural faith. Yeah. What does that mean, and how do you know you began to experience it? Is that something you can actually experience?
Well, certainly.
I guess what I mean is like in the senses kind of thing. Like, is it something like, oh, now things are different, or what was it?
Yeah. So my whole story culminated with the birth of my first daughter, Abby, in Rome, who was born to my wife and I 11 years ago tomorrow. I don't know when you're going to be airing this, but it was in real time. It was 11 years ago tomorrow, and yeah, it's a long story, but I was always drawn to the intellectual muscle in the faith, like St. Augustine, but was not compelled by anything I'd heard in terms of. I mean, and I always kind of had a natural affinity for the morals of the Catholic, and not all of them.
Yeah.
But except I didn't make any, giant mistakes. I always was disgusted by. I played in a rock band throughout college, a touring rock band.
High school. Yeah, you guys were definitely better than me, and I have no idea what you sounded like.
Just because you were not me.
Something other. Yeah.
No, I mean we did many tours, and I was always disgusted by the kind of intemperance that's on display in the clubs.
What a gift!
Disgusting. Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty gross. The chicks are pretty chubby. Coming up to you in rock clubs in spandex. It's just there's you have some natural and supernatural graces that help you to avoid mistakes if you're at all discriminating. I never got into drugs, never did drugs. So if you avoid drugs and you're not, we were also a pretty serious-minded band, so we weren't drinking a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
That's, 4/5 of the battle.
There's something about when you yourself aren't drinking, you see how gross it is to be drunk when you're with friends. Like, I remember as a teen, I would smoke pot, and there was one day I had to go to work, and so I was with my mates, but I didn't smoke a lot of pot, but maybe I did like several times.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, well, they are, so I need to tell them. But I was looking at my friends, and they were high as kites, and I sat there and like, I don't want to live this way,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, it's a nice cautionary example to see, idiots, particularly if they're, badly clad in like pleather and with rolls of chub.
This is the third time you've used the word chub.
Well, it's a big deal to me.
Is it? Why?
Well, I mean, when a young man is attempting to avoid acts of sexual indiscretion, it really helps if the inhabitants are
not attractive to him.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Rock chicks typically aren't. But either way, it's a cautionary example. So it wasn't so much the morals that were a challenge. It was just literally the supernatural aspects, which is basically what you're saying. So I was always attracted to the natural law, got into philosophy in college, ended up doing a whole lot of graduate work and going to Rome to study under Father Kevin Flannery, Aristotle and Thomas. And I still... my wife and I prayed, I think, but it was really until Abby was born.
So what happened there?
She was born really suddenly at 8 months gestation, and man, it was genuinely scary. I feel like we don't have to be really formal about it, but it was scary as shit. And we ended up having to leave Rome because the care there was we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Mm-hmm. That's the long and the short of it. But she was born suddenly.
Was she in NICU?
She was in NICU for 29 nights and had basically an in utero brain bleed, which led to hydrocephalus. So she came out, her head was huge. I thought it was going to be that way forever.
Oh,
And they told us she might be a vegetable for life. She might be whatever. She's in a wheelchair, but she's.
Did you have any signs of that throughout the pregnancy?
No. It was like an accident. It's probably something some idiotic Italian doctor did. Sorry, Italians.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They don't know, and there's no recourse.
I'm so sorry.
We don't know.
Wow.
We don't. I mean, we literally. It's just a fluke.
So what was that like for you? Because I think like we would all like to say as fathers, I saw my child and I thought I'm just going to love this child, and the main thing is that she's here. But I think people underestimate just how difficult it must be to have a child.
Sudden medical trauma.
Because having a child after just being with your wife is traumatic enough. I mean, my wife and I, we did our thing. We went to the movies. We went and saw people. Then we had a baby, and everything had to revolve around the baby. And that's a big enough adjustment.
Right, right. It was such a earth-shattering, seismic shift for us that, who knows? I mean, my wife and I have always been really into maintaining, normalcy and all that. And we have lots of other kids afterwards. But it was, like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. My wife and I, we don't.
That's very good.
It's really good on so many levels, right?
It is, yeah.
But I mean, we had a whole plan about like, okay, we try not to stay apart for a night, like ever, if possible. So we were like, okay, well, one night in the hospital, because in Italy they don't let you stay in the hospitals.
Right.
That's the man. They don't know what the hell
any
of that is. So so we had a whole plan. We would not be apart for a night. And literally
you and your wife?
It ended up being 29 nights. It was super scary, and it was sort of the seeds, the fertilization of all of our family faith. Because through Abby, who has serious delays, she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
But she's amazing. She's kind of the saint of the household. Again, really cliche. Because when you have like a special needs kid, people always think they have to whatever. Like we joke around with lots.
They feel like they have to tiptoe around.
Oh, that's your daughter's so beautiful.
Yeah.
She actually is beautiful.
Yeah.
But people will say like, oh, your daughter's so she's probably the smartest one in the family. You're like, well, no. I mean, she has mental retardation. Like,
so she's definitely not.
She is the sweetest. She doesn't
sin.
Yeah, she doesn't
commit mortal sin like we do.
Right, but she's not. I mean, you don't have to say that.
You have to lie.
Because when here's the thing: when you go through something that sudden and that hard, and we came back we fled back to the States. I put aside finishing the PhD, when it ended up going to law school, and I was just paranoid hypochondriac for basically all of law school.
For you or her?
For everyone.
Okay.
It just turned me into a total hypochondriac. And we thought you think you're going to get support from a source and it doesn't come. You don't expect it from other sources and it does. You don't know what's around the pike. And so people will, some people will try to be sensitive in ways that you're not looking for. I mean, you can't control people, but and nor should one seek to. But the point is, that's really strange in all this is people will say to you like the kinds of stuff I'm saying that you almost have to choke back a laugh. You could just be real with it.
Yeah.
It's a loss. You're mourning a loss when your kid is born like mentally retarded. You have to mourn it. Like, oh, okay, there's going to be a whole set of functionality that's just gone.
And was there a temptation to rush too quickly to it'll be fine and I'm fine and everything will be fine?
Absolutely.
And then how did that break down and you learn how to mourn?
It's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question. But I was doing it during law school, and I was messed up. I was so dizzy. It made me a total hypochondriac, and I was literally walking around like law school orientation and just dizzy because I had something I think that's called adrenal fatigue.
Okay.
Where you're meant to have like shots of adrenaline for 5 minutes once a month when like a cheetah chases a gazelle. Or, I don't care about the gazelle.
Yeah,
I'm the gazelle in this situation. Yeah.
Totally.
I don't give a damn about
but
a gazelle.
You just exist in that.
Literally for 24 hours for that long. So I literally couldn't. I remember when we moved to law school in San Diego. Because you have a San Diego area code, I noticed.
Yeah, I was. My daughter was born there. I used to work at Catholic Answers.
Yeah. You used to. Yeah, so you used to work at Catholic Answers you were there in 2009, right? Or was it before that?
No, like 2012, I think. 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So after that, yeah.
But sometime when I was in law school.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, in El Cajon there.
Yeah.
Beautiful building.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right by the Taylor Guitar Factory.
Right.
I remember that blowing me away because I played Taylor's growing up in
I know.
Australia, and there it was.
I know, it's right there.
Okay, so adrenaline fatigue.
Adrenaline fatigue, just people don't understand it. I would walk around dizzy. I was losing my hair. And through Abby when she was about 3 years old. Yeah, we were at, actually, Michael O'Brien, the Catholic author.
Yeah.
I wrote him, and I sent him part of a manuscript. I have a long fiction work that's just probably never going to get finished. I hope to finish it, but I sent it to him, and he's like, "This is good." Blah blah. I told him the Rome story. There's a lot more to the saga, but it's hard to do. It takes special finesse to get through the full Rome saga with Abby. And hit all the details and do it any justice. But I wrote him that in a letter. It's easier to do.
Yeah.
And he just said, "You seem like a guy that needs to pray to the third person of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't do that." I was still kind of coming around. So he's like, "Do that." And I got that. It was because I was getting up. The adrenal fatigue messes you up.
Okay.
My hands would hurt. I was just dizzy all the time.
When were you diagnosed? You said you're losing your hair. Were you worried that something else was happening?
Yeah. So I was worried because I was always worried about. I was worried about everyone's health.
Yeah.
So that didn't help. Walking around dizzy for 6 months in the hospital, I'd have to grab the thing. I mean, basically, I just saw so many doctors about the anxiety that
in Italy still or San Diego?
No, this is San Diego.
Yeah.
So I was just walking around dizzy. I was coming down the mountain from Alpine.
Yeah.
Or into El Cajon there.
Yep.
On that pass with the Walmart in El Cajon. What's that
El
called?
Cajon, you mean?
El Cajon, yeah.
Los
Coches Road.
Okay.
Los Coches Road is where they have the Walmart. There's like a dip in the road there. I would always get extra dizzy there, and I would be dreading it, dreading that dip. And so, yeah, it was the kind of thing where I thought that I was sick or someone else in the family was sick. So Michael O'Brien says, pray to the Holy Spirit. Holy Thursday, early night, I would wake up at 2 or 3, my hands just hurt. I said a quick little prayer to the Holy Spirit. This is, I think, I forget what it was, third year of law school, Holy Thursday. We went to Mass later that day, 18 hours later. And Abby, who doesn't talk, I mean, she could barely say her name. Abby's a pretty easy name to say, no glottal stops or whatever. She would add one, say Agnes, but clear as a bell in the middle of the consecration. We just have her here, I can still kind of carry her everywhere, even though she's in a wheelchair. My wife and I were just there, and she was just chanting something, and I leaned in, and she was saying, Holy Spirit.
Oh.
Holy Spirit. In Chris diction, I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't happen to me. I'm a skeptic. I'm a cynic.
Glory to Jesus Christ.
Over and over and over. Yeah. So she's
Holy
the channel.
Holy smokes, man. That's amazing. Holy Spirit, I mean.
Yeah, right.
That is amazing. What was that like, leaning over and hearing that?
Amazing. I'm not a drippy guy, but I was just like, I think I grabbed Steph's head and just put her down into listening space, and she was like, oh, wow. And then I reminded her, she's like, how is she saying that? Just over and over and over again. She didn't know that word. She barely knew any words. She had a few.
Wow.
I was like, I prayed that Michael O'Brien thing last night.
How amazing that Michael O'Brien reached out to you. And have you ever told him that story?
I did tell him.
Cool.
He was like, cool. It was like, because I mean, when you tell guys that have a lot of faith, that's about 10 years ago, a little less than 10 years ago now, that I had the full culmination, the Augustinian thing. Yeah. Sorry it took so long to get through that
this
story,
is the whole point of long-form discussion. You could have done this for another hour.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
But you tell faithful guys, I'm like, yeah, that happened. Anyway, I got to go do this, clean this room now.
Right.
Like, no, it's amazing. They're like, yeah.
That's incredible. So the question I asked, though, was how did you go from everything will be fine to I need to mourn this? And then you began by talking about like going through your own personal stuff. I guess the praying to the Holy Spirit is what...
Yeah, well, that was a roundabout way of saying I never was like, well, when we were stuck in Italy and Steph was just living in the hospital with Abby, we literally thought in the infancy of both the girl named Abby and the infancy of the whole us going through this, which is a kind of a central event in our life, maybe the central event in our lives. we weren't trying to rush it as much. We just thought, like, you talk to a doctor and they're going to know. And they're like, no, the brain's plasticity and remapping of functions works in such a way that for one person it could be highly effective and another it couldn't. So he kept saying this, but we kept thinking every time a doctor walked in the room, there was like news. Like, because the brain was so squished and thin from the hydrocephalus, it was like so thin. They're like, it should expand in the next week. One of them told us that. And then like later you get a different, so we were like hanging our lives on that. Like, is it gonna rebound? And then like a week later, we're like, so did it do it? And they're like, then another doctor was on shift and he was like, well, yeah, we were expecting that. And we're like, you put us on eggshells. So, but yeah, it did that, but that's not the real test. So we kept getting this is the fake test, this is the real test thing. So we were going through that. It was really about 4 months later when I was like, okay, Abby was 4 months old when we went home. And I didn't have a job. Couldn't go back to just teaching high school in the middle of the year because it was November when we went back. Didn't have a PhD in hand. Just had this, infant with a recent brain surgery. That was the new thing. And family was really that way. Family is, I think, really wounded at this point in, even the synod on the family. We have it come down to us that really in this, the final attack of Satan is on the households.
Yeah.
It's the last attack. That's what Cardinal Cafaro said.
Because it's an attack on who we are, who man is, who woman is. The most sacred thing men and women can do together. Like the whole thing is coming apart, it feels.
No, it is. It
is. It was the First Vatican Council that said when God is forgotten, man himself becomes unintelligible, or something to that effect.
That's right.
So true.
Because it's we talk about identity politics. Family is the real source of human identity.
Yeah.
Family.
Am I
and a mother and a
lovable?
father.
Will you give up on me? All that.
And that stuff is it's deep. Those are deep questions, and they're not just for like emo music from the late '90s anymore. You realize, in less traumatic sounding childhoods or whatever, you can still have issues.
Well,
and
that's right.
We came back to that kind of like people are all wanting it to be okay. Like, oh, so it's going to be okay. We're like, no, it's really not. I mean, I'm really
things are not okay, and I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and are you okay with that, or are you going to leave? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you saw, as you say, unexpected sources of help you had, and then other people not so much.
Certainly. Yeah. Just that's the only real way to say it without getting into specifics too much. It's just like, man, anyone who's undergone a trauma, there are lots greater than ours. But they realize this is the case.
A bit about trauma that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and it kind of goes to what you were saying. One person can receive something objectively awful happen to them. Another person, it could be less awful objectively. And yet that second person could be more traumatized than the first.
Certainly.
So like, you imagine like you got two young boys. One is, say, beaten by his father, and yet his father apologizes and he knows it's his dad's issue, not his. In the second situation, the dad looks at him and says, you're a friggin' joke and you're not going to amount to anything.
Right.
And the son makes an agreement with that, like, I am a joke.
Right.
I'm not in any way downplaying or trivializing physical abuse, but what I am saying is, I think there's this temptation for all of us to be like, well, other people have gone through worse. And I feel like as soon as we feel tempted to do that, we got to stop because,
I agree with that.
A trauma is worth taking seriously and bringing to the Father, and I think it's a lie just to dismiss it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I agree with all that. Aside from the fact that you really were making light of trauma, and
thank you, thank you very much.
No, it's exactly right what you say. That the same thing can happen to two people. My wife and I, for instance, she had a really tough childhood. So it was weird. She went into immediately, I remember the first night this all came to pass and she had to stay in the hospital. They're like, we're going to have to take this baby out. She just did the rosary all night and then fell asleep until she fell asleep. And it was a really hard time. But that's a coping mechanism. Even things like the ability to fall asleep during trauma, like you could tell she got that from different experiences. Whereas I would literally just be up, like tense noodle or something. Noodles don't get tense, but I would do whatever does this nonstop.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I guess so. Just a much less strong version. And it does not sleep. Yeah.
Our fourth child, Peter, was a NICU baby. He was born. We didn't know if he was going to survive. He was in the NICU. He came out. He had to be on a feeding tube for a couple of months. And I remember just not coping well. I remember intentionally dissociating. I remember scrolling through Netflix for like an hour and not choosing anything. You know, just like numbing, just numbing.
It's numb. It's got a numbing effect. Yeah.
Having to just shut it down. And then my wife nearly died a year later. She was in the ICU. She was in the hospital for a month. She had a septic infection.
From his birth?
No, she had, unfortunately, a miscarriage. D&C led to a septic infection, very close to death.
Oh, man.
And I'm just like, couldn't cope. And I don't know about you, but like I rushed to all the extremes. Like, okay, she'll be okay or she'll die. And this sounds horrible. And if people haven't been through this, maybe they'd be tempted to look upon me without sympathy here. But part of me was like, okay, just either die or get better so I can figure out what the bloody hell I'm supposed to be doing with these kids in my life. And that sounds aggressive, and it was, but it was my way of trying to cope.
Yeah.
Because to remain in that tension, I just couldn't do it. I was just going out of my mind, you know. And
yeah, there's no life in the void. It's that void of uncertainty where, like, I mean,
yeah, that's a good point.
Different temperaments will do that differently.
I'm melancholic choleric. Do you do the four?
The four, yeah. I think I think melancholic's my second one.
Yeah. Phlegmatic is easygoing kind of thing.
I can't remember. Anyway. I might be consanguine. Is that even one?
Yeah,
consanguine, melancholic. Cool. Aren't they like opposites? So I can't remember, but everyone does that, where you kind of are like, you want to, at all desperate costs, to sort of claw out of the contingency. Because, I mean, you can live with contingency. It's part of life. Any one of us could get hit by a bus at any time. But you don't really believe it, and it's not affecting any necessary conditions for your life. But when it's your best friend and the person that means the most to you, your wife, or a new daughter, you know, you can't, the human mind can't compute this.
Yes.
So even like, what is the ontological status of potency? This is something I would think about because I'd been studying Aristotle and Thomas, and I'm like, wait, so what is the status of my life right now, of my relationship with my daughter? Well, I don't know if she's going to speak. It's not the same thing as not knowing if she's going to live, but some doctors were saying vegetative status.
In some ways, it could be more traumatic. You know what I mean? Like, again, like if your child is born, they have 24 hours to live, as opposed to your daughter's going to survive and you don't know to what degree she's going to be disabled.
That's right. Some people might think that's a stretch, but that is the thing where you want to, you know, swim, or you want to fight or flee.
Yes.
And when you can't do that, it does have a numbing effect. That's what I would notice. I'd just be, because Abby was born in the middle of Tiber Island, right? In the middle of Rome. Fate Bene Fratelli Hospital, but they immediately had to helicopter her out. You asked what was my response as a guy. I was kind of scared of her. Mm-hmm. Steph didn't even get to see her. They had to helicopter her to Gemelli, which is outside of Rome, north of Rome, where they brought JP2 when he got shot, right? And I didn't even know how the hell to get there.
Yeah.
And we'd been taking the metro around, and we'd been there about a year at that point, so we took their little Linea A, Linea B. They just have the cute little X metro. I guess they got a Linea C now.
Okay.
But so I'm like, I don't know how to get there. It's far away. What am I going to do? But I saw her and I was frightened, because like men don't have, and you know, lots of men pretend they do, but they don't have a natural connection with the baby.
Yeah.
The way mom does, because we haven't like
been with her,
cohabitated
him for 9 months. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just frightened, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over there and see. Steph was laid up for the next week because of the way they did the C-section. So the long and the short of it was, I had to go out to this university hospital. I had no sleep the night before. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where it was. And some people, a couple Americans that had an Italian friend, that just sort of took me under their wing. They got me a cell phone. They helped me call my parents. I went into numb mode almost immediately, where I was like, I had no sleep last night. I'm about to get another sleepless night. I ended up staying in some part of Rome. This lady, Elisabetta Beraldo, she was walking me around Gemelli like this. They drove me. It might have been my first time in a car in like a year. And we were just walking around. I saw Abby a second time at Gemelli, and it was midnight, and I was beat tired. And then we go to her apartment. I have no clue where I'm at. I'm about to fall asleep, and then it just hit me like, I might be expatriated from America forever. And I sat up in bed.
Why did you think that?
Because of insurance and all that. I just realized, like, oh dear, like this is a pre-existing condition or whatever.
Gotcha.
So, and I was very irrational after like
Not
2
sleeping.
days of terror. Not sleeping hits you between the eyes. And so I sat up in bed, and like a Dostoevsky novel, I got that brow sweat he's always talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it came down like a cascade. I've never
Yes.
heard anything like, and so I got a second sleepless night.
Oh, man.
So that's the point. Was you just don't know, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know what's it's so much trauma, and this ended up leading to the whole family's salvation.
Well, this is interesting because I think for a lot of people, they would go through something like that, and we talked about the contingency, living in the contingency, and they'll think, I can't trust you, Father. Like, you're not for me. You're not interested in the intricate details of my life, the seemingly insignificant ones. I knew it. I knew you would abandon me.
Right.
Like, but for you, you came to faith.
Yeah, because I never really thought there was I had never been convinced that there was an actual personal God that cared anyway. So I didn't feel let down.
Yeah, because
there's no God
no
to
one
be
laying you
angry
down.
about. Yeah, it was just contingency. And, you know, I did respect Aristotle and Thomas, like two smartest guys ever. And I'd been studying it for several years at that point, but I was starting to consider the proposition intellectually. But, you know, I wasn't mad. I was just scared.
Yeah.
I was never like, you did this to me. To me, that sounds like such a cliche. So sorry, people who say that.
No, it's a cliche. But I think even if we don't say it out loud, we can make agreements, you know, like agreements like, if only you, Father, would work as hard for me as Satan seems to be. Like, why don't you care? You know, we kind of make these kind of little internal agreements, even if we don't articulate them.
Well, that's true.
So how have you, like, what's that been like recovering from that trauma and growing in your relationship with the Heavenly Father? Like, have you processed that with him? In other words, like, where were you in all of this? Or have you just, since you began that relationship with God, it hasn't actually?
Well, it's the way that he chose to chasten me and my family. And I always had a kind of naturally virtuous, really close relationship with my wife. We were talking about this in the long, many car hours we had over the last 10 days. I was always, you know, naturally a leader. We were always naturally best friends. So we never had like a, you know, little feminist sham set up or anything. It's not like it took a conversion to the faith for me to get that. Nothing like that. Our relationship didn't change. It was just, okay, now this is real.
Yep.
And she knew I went out to Rome because I was interested in exploring Thomism even further than what I'd studied in earlier grad school. But that was the intellect, not the will. So yeah, the Abbey stuff just consecrated the whole household. It really did. And so, yeah, the only way I've processed it was supernaturally. It was nothing but good. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, today is the actual 11-year anniversary of us finding out, because it's the day before Abby's birthday. Yeah, the 15th.
When's her birthday then?
The 16th.
That's that's my birthday.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
That's your birthday. Yeah, happy birthday.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I share the same
We've shaken
birthday.
hands.
We're gonna have to. It's been great though.
Yeah.
I've loved it.
Yeah.
We should get a cake when you come over to the house today. Later on, we should hang out.
Yeah.
I can't wait to meet your daughter.
She's pretty amazing.
So what would your advice be? Because I feel uncomfortable when I meet people who are severely handicapped. Because I'm not sure how to act. It's kind of like opening the door for a woman. It's like, I want to do this, but I don't know if you're going to yell at me or thank me. So when I meet somebody whose child is disabled, I'm like, I want to meet you, but I don't know if that seems condescending.
Odds are,
what would your advice be?
Opening the door, first bit of advice, 0.0, opening the door for a woman now, still do it, but just start yelling at them. Well, we were at Disney World
You
this
are
week.
welcome!
No, I wish I were joking more, but I've never in my life, actually I've seen close seconds, but my wife and I were also talking about this. At Disney World, it's like so many unhappy, chubby, tyrants running around yelling at their husbands. I saw a lot of happy men and happy kids, but just, literally one lady, we're walking to the thing and he's like, hey, do you want a Dr. Pepper? We're, on the last leg of getting to your car when you're actually really happy after a long day on your stilts here, whatever these are called, your walking apparatus.
Sure.
And you're just happy. Everyone, we're always grateful. My family enjoys one another, even if it's been a tiresome day. But there were, right before you go to the final walk from Disney World, some vending machines. And some guy was like asking his wife, hey, do you want a Dr. Pepper? She's like, is it in a bottle? And he's like, I don't know. Do you want one though? And she's like, I asked you, is it she was just yelling, is it in a bottle? The proper response is like, you're not getting one now, right?
Forget
you don't get one. I've never seen so many spoiled
That's
brats
so
in
sad.
all my life.
You know, I think
But
though,
I have.
I think
It's a
Disney
problem.
World does play to people's worst thing, though. I mean, it's.
But
I
the
hate
problem
theme
is I see
parks
this stuff all the time.
Oh, do you?
You just see, I mean, I don't know how people don't go around talking about it more. Just wives yelling at their husbands. I feel like it happens at the grocery store. It is a little more naked and out front and center at Disney World because everyone's so hot
and stressed.
and
Yeah.
stressed. But I mean, like,
I couldn't think of anything worse than going to Disney World. I haven't been. I don't ever want to go.
You don't want to go?
People are like,
We
what about
like
for your kids? I'm like, especially not with my kids.
we like we like it. We've got it in our blood, but it is so humid
Yeah.
in Florida. And
Joe, is the mic doing well on him? Is it not too low? Okay, good. Sorry, keep going.
it's a real problem though. Like, even, okay, accept the premise that it's stressful, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think it's just me. I think it's an Emperor's New Clothes thing. In 2019 in the West here, you walk around, I just feel like I'm always getting, because my wife was going to be like, I could tell you what she really wanted to say.
Yeah.
But she's like, you're not attractive enough to be acting that rude to your husband.
Oh, dear.
That's what she wanted to
Wow. But you know what's funny is, like, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, this breakdown of the family. Like, what does it mean to be man? What does it mean to be woman? And the man, if the man fails at his post and he doesn't give of his love, if the woman doesn't feel secure in his pursuit of her, then she becomes resentful of him. And then as she becomes resentful of him, he becomes kind of distant from her, because we don't like to be around resentful, angry people.
Sure, but let's think. I mean, I'm being serious now. Think
Yeah.
of the move you just made. Like, and it's completely subliminal, and everyone does it. Even good Catholics, good conservatives. There's a vested. I mean, the original sin, sure, is ultimately Adam. In dereliction of duty, right? He's standing right there next to the serpent and Eve, and he's just watching it all
Passive.
take place. So I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's fine. But whether you're talking about abortion, people are trying to make this ultimately a male issue. Ultimately, it's a female issue, legally and morally, right? Because men are victims of abortion. Women can literally have an abortion, and the man intercedes, and to no effect. A man cannot stop an abortion from happening to his own child.
Yeah, so what is this?
So
You're pressing against the feminism thing,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to balance it out, and you're pressing back again.
That's right.
I'm trying to figure out
That's right.
where we're agreeing and where we're disagreeing here.
We're agreeing.
Maybe is it are you kind of naturally and maybe rightly reacting against a culture that's continually speaking down to men and fathers? Is that what you're doing? Or?
Sure, but I'm reacting in a way that I think is supremely, sublimely obvious that people aren't willing to say. That, sure, we can say that ground zero, step one, the original sin is actually feminism, right? It's man in dereliction of duty, and like women being the speaker of the household, not meant to happen. A woman being the decision maker for the household, not meant to happen. The representative.
Oh, I see. So you're saying, what does feminism mean to you? If you're gonna say it's the original sin, we need to know what it means, because I think there's
Sure.
a million different definitions. And sometimes when people explain feminism to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with that. And then other times I hear it explained, I'm like, I don't agree with that. So,
So
what
I'm
do you
writing
mean?
a book.
Okay.
All feminine. There is no. People break it into 3 waves. Now there's supposed to be a 4th wave.
Yeah.
They try to say the first wave of feminism is good. You do a little research, you press on this. The Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 is like the earliest iteration of any feminism anywhere. They'll tell you first wave of feminism is about female voting rights.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of punted on that. Didn't even want to get into that. But that whether that's the issue, it's not necessary to get into that, because they printed out a declaration of grievances. All of the issues are there. I can show it to you in the 1848 document by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the Declaration of Grievances. All the second wave evil feminist stuff is there writ large in this declaration. Women need to get into the priesthood. Women need to be they're insinuating need to be sexually immoral to match male sexual immorality. Women need to be leaders. Women need to be in the workplace. All the evils that are just killing society.
Okay, this
killing
is
family.
great. I'm so glad we're getting into this.
Yeah,
So here's what I wanna-
destroy it so much
I
more than
want you to-
homosexuality. With feminism is the prime evil.
So I want you to develop this, and I want to give you the time to develop it, because we're going to have people who hate you and are totally unsubscribing from me right now, which I'm fine with.
Sorry. Well, that's not good.
I want them to unsubscribe. I don't mind.
I love to be hated, by the way.
Do you? Yeah, I have a bit of that in me too. A bit of that kind of.
I have too much
vinegar. That bit of piss and vinegar kind of thing that likes to kind of needle people. I get it.
Yeah. No, but too much. It's weird. It's dysfunction. I don't know what it is, but
Well,
I don't want to lose you subscribers.
No, lose them.
This is eminently defensible, though. This is the easiest
Well, and I want you to
argument
get
I've
into
ever
it, but
mounted.
before we get into that, let me just say this. Sometimes when I'm trying to make a point that I know is controversial, I'll begin by saying what I don't mean. That way that person can rest. So if I'm going to be talking about praying to Mary or the Catholic devotion to Mary, and I'm talking to an evangelical, before I say all that I mean, it's helpful to say, we don't think Mary's God. We don't worship Mary. Here's what we think worship means. And then they can go, okay, so what is it you mean? And then as I say it, they don't have to be as defensive. So before you unspool on all of our beautiful ladies, and especially those who would maybe be open to the possibility of feminism, what do you not mean? Does that make sense?
I don't think I've said anything yet that I don't mean. I pray to Mary every day. I pray a rosary.
But you don't think women should be subjected to women in an unhealthy sense? It sounds like, are you saying that women shouldn't work? Like, I want you to tell people what you don't mean before you...
Sure. Well, just following the Catholic magisterium very, very clearly said, not single women. There's no, if you got to earn a wage, but yeah, married women shouldn't work. It's in casti connubii. Oh man. So I have all the, I'm co-writing this book with my brother, and my brother has the meatiest chapter 3 of our upcoming book with Sophia Institute.
All right, so
all the magisterial teachings, casti connubii, really the point of rerum novarum is one wage households. The Catechism of Trent is very clear about it. It's just, it's indisputable stuff.
If we put away, because I don't know enough to push back on you with the theological stuff, I haven't looked into that. If we put aside for one moment kind of like church teaching, what's kind of like the natural law, or kind of what a philosophical argument be for why you think women shouldn't work? Or why wives shouldn't work, it sounds like you're saying.
Well, if it's there's a million. But first and foremost, people, I understand, like, it sounds obscure to just jump into,
it's like
the magisterial teaching.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's really clear. So just, you have to take my word that
I do.
There's even 20th century writings, even at the very beginning of Rerum Novarum, he says the whole point of all this wage earner capitalist stuff is to get a one income household. So that's tapping into both the supernatural law and the natural law. Catechism of Trent all but anathematizes it.
Wow.
Says it's serious. So Catholics have to care about it. Protestant Christians have to care about it.
Looking this up while you talk.
Because it was for what this is the ultimate natural law argument.
Okay.
Before I forget, I just got a good brainstorm. For whatever it is, thousands upon thousands of human upright walking hominid history.
Okay.
Until about 1970, it was presumed that the foremost duty of parents to kids, Catechism codifies this, but it's also a natural law assumption, was to educate them, to raise, not just procreate them, but educate them. The mother's at home with the kids. It's not negotiable, right? They just, children can't be at home alone. And being at home with the stranger is strange. So it's a duty of the natural law, recognized by the supernatural, magisterium of the church, and no one questioned it. I mean, look. So if this whole wall is like a ruler from there to there, everything but the last millimeter, probably not even that, would be this is emperor's new clothes. Yes, a man is built. He's bigger, stronger, different forebrain. Literally different temporal lobe. There's just all the statistics obliterate anything approaching feminism, whether you're talking first wave feminism, which that's my research chapter. It's exactly what second wave feminism is.
Can you not argue that society has changed so much that this is no longer...
I am arguing society's changed.
Yeah, but can you argue that it's changed so much that the idea that the woman should stay at home is no longer necessary? Because as a dude, I don't need to be big and brawny to perform manual labor to earn money.
But no, you can't argue that. What you can argue is that the society has changed. I argue it's the main ill. It's so much more. See, I say it strong.
No, that's okay.
I'm not
Do
taking
it.
So much more dangerous than homosexuality or any of the changing. People like to bitch about, now there are 2 homosexuals in every program on NBC. Yeah, I bitch about that too. But it's not relevant for, 98, 99% of the population. We're being sort of desensitized to a fringe lifestyle that 1 or 2% of the population might be tempted to live. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I don't give that much of a shit. But what affects man, woman, and child, root and branch, everywhere, and it's so effectively wormed its way into the host organism, feminism, that no one even talks about it anymore like in the 70s. It just worked its way in, and people are like, does your wife work? And I'm like, of course not. And then they're like, oh, because you have kids and the special needs kid. I'm like, no, because she's a married woman. Keeping house, doing all the things that everyone's pretending to forget. Now it's just like, yeah, what do you do? Then I just come back and I'm, well, what? Okay, whether or not you have kids, who tends the house? Who keeps the house lovely? How is this house a home? I mean, that's the lovely, amazing, necessary thing. You're not just going to a building. I mean, this room here is like a studio, right? It's got the trappings of a studio. It's very masculine. Yeah. And it's just very functional, which is what males are geared to do.
Yeah.
Who takes that building you call a house, a home, and the secret is, the answer? Because I come off strong. I don't give a shit whether people like it or not. But I'm not exaggerating for effect. They literally don't have an answer. And they're like, oh, we do get in a lot of arguments about who's going to cook dinner. I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like hell. So you go to a day of work. I'm just trying to step into the shoes of like 90% of the people out there. You go to a full day of work.
Yep.
You get home, and then you have no dinner. The kids are unruly because they haven't been looked after by their parents, and that's a very easy to,
kids, I see, because they've been at daycare.
They're a nuisance, right? So.
Okay.
Oliver Wendell Holmes said even a dog knows the difference between getting kicked and getting accidentally stepped over. Huh. I mean, it's true. Kids pick that up really quick. You're a nuisance if no one's there doing their role to look after you. You pick up the kids from daycare or whatever. What's the situation? You both get home and now it's an argument over cooking dinner. You don't want a dinner I cook. Are you serious?
What do you say to those men who would rather stay home? Or the woman has a degree, they met, and so she's much better at bringing home the money. And the father's like, I would actually like to stay home with the kids. And it's not, it's not the kind of stereotype that some may say that he's wussy, and I don't think that for a second, but I'm saying some people might think that. Well, what about that situation where the couple come to an agreement?
Well, I mean, so that's sort of exceptional, but either way, the natural law sort of looms large, and just you're a man, do what
I think
you're
you're
born
right.
to do.
I agree. I'm
Preston.
I agree with some of what you're saying. I think we tend to. Yeah, we're being told not to care about these things. Like, you shouldn't care if you're the breadwinner, and the man can do this just as well. And we're like, I guess.
I mean,
we can't really believe it.
Look at the statistics. We have all these things gathered. For one thing, there is no good feminism. All feminism is evil.
Okay,
the church is
but first of all, so I think one of the things you have to understand with feminism is that the women as a whole are being oppressed, or at least in different parts of the world or in different situations, and that seems to be true in some cases, at least sexually, with the pornography industry, with sexual trafficking.
Well, no one. I mean, I'm completely anti-pornography. We both hate.
Well, that's
hate
good.
the point. But that has nothing to do with feminism.
But can't you say that women's bodies are being sold and bought and sold by men?
Well, I mean, as far as I can, feminism is pro selling.
But I know people
bodies
who say they're feminists and they're against porn.
But they're confused. I mean, you can't make feminism into one size fits.
This is why it's difficult to just denounce it.
Okay, so would you denounce all forms of chauvinism, which is the
explain that to me? Define it for me.
Is there a good chauvinism? Is there a good misogyny? No, it's
being like unjust to women, being mean to women. Like, I need to define it. Again, these words get thrown around.
Being pro-men. Feminism is just the identity politic of females, right? Identity politics, community organizing, all that shit. chauvinism, it would just be the rough equivalent of an identity politic of men. Misogyny, throw that out, because that's what you said.
Hating women in some degree.
Hating women, I guess that's what the terms actually mean. But chauvinism is just, is there a good chauvinism?
Oh, I see. Is there a good mirror image of feminism?
Yeah,
Is that what
there's
you're saying?
not.
Yeah.
There's not a good chauvinism.
But then the argument would be that men haven't been subjected in the way that women have to certain social ills.
Now we're being tautological. It's not subjection. I mean, so here's the basic idea. Christianity says in about 11 or 12 passages in the New Testament, forget the Old Testament. Well, there's not, egalitarianism is evil, as Thomas Aquinas teaches everywhere. Equality, you give,
the
justice.
making equal of unequals.
Right, the making equal of unequals. The disposition of justice is done by giving to each his due. Mm-hmm. And men and women are utterly unequal. So in the 90s...
Unequal, not in dignity. I know you know that, but they're going to not know that.
But dignity is not the kind... Sure, dignity is the one thing... or the one
equally
desideratum,
human, right?
It's 100% okay to be egalitarian. But that's sort of a supernatural thing. It just means that you can't be killed or have your rights stripped. So that shouldn't be happening anywhere. But for all intents and purposes in human life, what women want to know about, the women, the dames at Seneca Falls in 1848. The gals. Whatever. At Seneca Falls, they wanted to be sexually indiscreet. They wanted to have jobs. They wanted to get into the priesthood. They wanted to, I'm forgetting, they're like 5 discrete points which have nothing to do with voting. A single woman voting. You can have a reasonable conversation about kind of household voting. Why should a household have multiple votes? But I don't really care about it in that way. I could go either way on that. But it's a lie. There is no good for there to be a good feminism, the way you're kind of pushing back a little bit, there would have to be one good iteration of it, right? And it's bad in theory because it's the identity politic of female community organizing, and it's been bad in all praxis. And even when you get a conservative Catholic like Dr. Carrie Grass writing a book against feminism, it's always just against radical feminism or against second wave feminism. So, but you look at the provenance of the thing; it goes all the way up. It's pure evil, and it's the pure evil of society. I mean, wow. Is it just me, or everywhere I go, I hear women who are sort of there's the captain, the man, the head of the household, the priest of the household, priest, prophet, king of the household, being yelled at by his first mate. I hear it everywhere.
I don't.
That's weird.
Maybe I'm.
Is it an Atlanta thing?
It might be just because the people I interact with, genuinely speaking, have good marriages. I mean, maybe you just are better at interacting with a lot more people than I am.
I mean grocery store. I hear the stuff like my Disney World.
But
story.
isn't it an understandable thing to be resentful of a man who isn't self-giving? Because I said that earlier, and you said I made a misstep, or that there was an assumption that I made. But I think it's true. The man is the initiator of the gift, sexually and also with love, to pursue the wife. And if I fail to pursue her, then she should become, in a sense, resentful of me.
But see what we're doing here. We're imputing. I have no clue what that the Dr. Pepper bottle families.
Sure.
Let's just call him Dr. Pepper.
What you are doing though is you're assuming the worst of her.
No, I'm not. Not at all. Not at all. It was a totally nice act, and it's society's filled with millions of these examples, and they've just clubbed me over the head. And everyone. It was a nice act. There's no real context.
No, but you don't know the context. So what I'm saying is you're assuming that she's being shrill and angry at him, but just that she's always like that and that he's always nice. I mean, who knows what kind of marriage?
No, I don't care whether he's always nice. I don't care whether he's always mean. Whether she's always nice or mean. We're all walking out to the car together. They happen to have stopped at the bathrooms. It's quiet, so there's no apparent argument going on. That would be violate Occam's razor. And he just asks, "Hey, can I get you a bottle of water?"
No, I get it.
Of course
you get it. How she reacted.
Because you're nice. I ask you, "Hey, do you want me to refill your bottle of water?"
Yes, please, right now.
Is it in a bottle?
No,
which is the voice.
I agree with what you're saying. It's bad that she reacted like that. It's really sad. I would not want to be that man. It sounds like an awful marriage.
Hell, yeah. But it's so many of them.
But all I'm saying is when you say all the women that you're seeing are like this, I'm saying couldn't the cause be, at least for a large percentage of these marriages, that the husband is failing to come through and she's learned to become bitter?
Most of these guys are cucks, yeah. I mean, in the informal sense where, sure, they're
See, if what you were doing right now is you were totally for feminism, I'd be pushing back against that.
I know.
Do you understand?
Yeah, no, I know.
I just
you
like to
have
try
this
and get
balance.
to the,
Yeah, you have the balance,
well,
which is good.
I'm trying to form a view, is what I'm doing, because I go online and I actually said something recently about feminism. It wasn't a quote from Chesterton. I thought it was. He said something like,
You quoted it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it was
the
good.
idea of feminism is that we think our husband is a slave, but we serve our boss, or
No. A woman is free. What the hell is it? It's a great quote.
right.
It's totally.
Oh, and everyone got so angry with me.
So you got to push back.
Well, I just
This is where
ignored them. I didn't delete it. I just ignored it
I took a great class
because I think
called,
there's truth in that. You know.
Oh, I don't see how any of it's false. Women, literally, would that woman have reacted that way to her? Because see, a husband is his wife's boss. If we're not willing, that's just Christian teaching. It's the Bible, it's magisterium, it's tradition. It's everywhere.
See, when people hear that, though, they hear tyrant. And we're called to love
Well,
our
boss
wives
isn't a
as
tyrant.
Christ loves the church.
Have you ever had a good boss, though? I mean,
I've
like,
had a couple of good boss, but they weren't called to love me like Christ loves the church. So I think
no.
it's
So
a bit
it's
confusing.
a kind of a boss. It's like when Protestant kind of waspy parents say, "I'm your father, I'm not your friend." Well, okay, let's consult Aristotle in Book 8 of the Ethics. He says that friendships between unequals are eminently possible. They're the best types. So a king between his subject or a father between his son. They're the best types. They just can't be treated like normal friendships between equals. So, but yeah, I am very close Aristotelian friends with all of my kids, and no, I'm not going to be the parent buying them alcohol for parties.
Right.
So people use these terms in idiotic ways. You have to define terms in a non-subjective way and an objective way, and then start from there, I guess. So an ordinary boss. I've had some great bosses that were very compassionate and are actually called to love me as a fellow Christian, but not in the unique way of best friend to best friend.
Right, and wanting your good always, not just 9 to 5.
Right, wanting your good always. I mean, my wife is my best friend, and we were friends for so long before we started dating that it always came natural. And she's not a lick of. I mean, Patrick Coffin always says like, "Wow, that's amazing." Even Steve Skojek from 1 Peter 5 is like, yeah, that's great because your wife is so fiery on Twitter and gets into these things with people, but yeah, as always, just doesn't struggle with that. It's so natural for a man to be a man and a woman to be a woman.
It is.
All of these arguments that I'm making, it's like unfair because I have such an advantage over anyone that comes up against it because it's just nature. It's the force of natural law.
Well, when a man does his job well, I think a woman wants to submit in the Ephesian sense, right?
Yeah.
And finds life in submitting as the man pours out his life for her, right? The problem is when this gets disrupted, either from the woman failing to receive and becoming bitter and hard, or the man failing to give and becoming passive, that's when we see these kind of disorders coming in, and then the man acting negatively towards her or her towards him.
Agreed.
And so in that
100%.
context, which is what most people are coming from as they're watching this, they probably come from families like this, they're in families like this.
Everyone.
So when you come in and say
Catholics.
the man has to be the boss, it's like, whoa, you've got to be able to, I feel like you've got to find a different way to say that.
No, you have to say. See, that's my whole thing. You have to say things directly, not like there are people I admire that are out there that are saying things a little bit exaggeratedly. For a first punch.
Yeah.
You know, instead of leading with a jab, leading with a cross. I like that now. I think we kind of need this in the way
To wake us up.
is talking about to wake us up. But that's not what I'm doing. I just am pure directness. No, literally. You ought to be best friends. I mean, a man sanctifies a woman sanctifies a man when they get married.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I mean, literally a husband is the priest, the wife is like the congregation, but they're both sanctifying one another and getting one another to heaven. Mm-hmm. So this is what your vocation is. Mm-hmm. When you are a married person is literally, if you're the man, you bear more of the responsibility, but getting one another to heaven.
Yep.
The man does so as the leader. The woman does so as sort of second in command over the kids. But what's really wild, aside from the fact that the natural law evidences this everywhere in animal kingdom. I mean, people pretend to love, women's sports now. It's gotten so out of control that it's dripping into sport. Marx said to do this.
Who?
Get this step. Marx is a tremendous fomenter of feminism and says.
Makes sense.
Marx and Engels, you got to get women into sports.
Totally.
You
got to eradicate all hierarchy.
All hierarchy. So it's really strange to go around and have this conversation where I'm like, I'm not exaggerating at all. Literally, my wife is my best friend. We have
and
an amazing friendship.
Yeah, it seems that way.
But I mean, not to brag. It's just I'm bad at a million things. But,
I'm like you. I love my wife so much. She's my best friend. If she ever leaves, I'm going with her.
Right. Exactly.
To quote one Christian comedian, I forget who said that, but it was brilliant.
Right.
I'm so in love with her, and I'm the same way. I feel so blessed that I have such a good relationship.
Likewise. So people that hang out with us it never even comes up. It's just literally like, I think 2 entire days at Disney World, I saw one couple that resembled my wife and I even a little bit. It was I got a haircut yesterday because people think I needed a haircut when they saw that.
I love your hair. Just keep it going.
Oh, thank you. But there's a Mexican couple with one kid. The dad and the kid were getting haircuts. The mom was waiting. She was smiling, which I didn't see a lot of women doing at Disney World because this feminism is so what's making them unhappy. But
okay.
No, real fast. So literally, she's smiling at the dad and the son, and you can tell she's proud of her husband. He's a manly dude. She's proud of her kid. And then the son asked for some souvenir he'd gotten. She's like, "Oh yeah, your dad bought you this, you know." And then he was like, "Thanks, Dad." And she's like, "That's great because your dad worked hard to get you that." I was like, "Wow." Okay, so there are some. I don't know if they're Catholic, but this is basically the 1%. It's the 99 and the 1. I'm like, wow, a smiling, and it, you know, it doesn't. It's not a beauty contest. And I'm not saying that women to qualify to meet muster here have to be Helen of Troy. That's not what I was saying when I was making the jokes. I was just saying a lot of it's kind of like I'm unhappy because I eat because I'm unhappy. I'm a big, you know, tough woman, and no one really believes that anyway, but they're barking at everyone. I just heard a lot of barking. And I do everywhere I go. With this woman, conversely, she's like encouraging gratitude from the son. You can tell the gratitude flows from a nice place. He's clearly a very good, manly dude. This is little Mexican family. I'm like, that's only awesome. Family in this entire damn place that resembles even a little bit what all of our relationships are unique, but kind of where I'm coming from with my wife. We're just joking around. When there's no power struggle, look, the boss thing is not front and center, by the way.
That's right. It's not like you have to remind anybody of this.
Right.
It's just she would like you to be the strength in the family,
of course,
right? That's the thing.
Yes. Of course. Dude,
is there any woman who doesn't want her husband to provide for her? If she says no, she's lying.
She's lying.
Yeah.
She's lying.
Or she does. She may not know she's lying, I think. But
it's only a power struggle when the 10-year-old tries to drive the car and you're like, no, this is going to be horrible. It's going to go really badly. It's when the first mate mutinies against the captain, it will always be, I'm boss. There's a lot of talk about who's boss, whereas the contrasting situation, when a situation works, it's just, there's rank you don't talk about. It barely ever comes up. I barely disagree with my wife about anything, and she's very opinionated. I mean, you marry the right person.
We can see this in, like, when a man proposes to a woman, or when a man holds a woman. You know, I know that we all want to be woke today and have the woman propose to the man, but no woman worth her salt wants to propose to a man, and no man worth his salt would allow his girlfriend to propose to him. Likewise, I remember when my wife and I, we were dating, we weren't married yet, but I remember, like, when I would think of her, I would think of holding her. And when she would think of me, she would think of being held by me.
Of course.
There we have it again, the giver and the receiver, right?
Definitely.
You see that in the sexual act, you see it in the marital proposal.
In the Trinity.
You see it in the Trinity, yeah. So I think, this is really interesting stuff. And I would just encourage people who are listening right now, even if they were to find something you're saying jarring, just to be humble enough, just to kind of keep listening, or maybe not even humble enough, but even if they were like, okay, he's a jerk and he's wrong, but let me try and see what truth there might be in that. Because I think that very often we just get offended and we just put up our defenses, and so we don't ever learn anything from anyone who holds a contrary opinion to ours.
Sure, but the lovely part about being Catholic, because your audience is mostly Catholic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost exclusively Catholic.
Yes, almost exclusively.
It's not debatable. It's lovely. It's you don't have to, if you're Catholic, this is clear. Now, this is one of the teachings in the post-conciliar era that's just a hush-hush. You know, like watching William Friedkin's Exorcist. They keep saying the Catholic Church is embarrassed about exorcisms. Catholic Church is embarrassed that it has the natural law teaching on men and women. it's kind of embarrassed that it's not pro-gay, and everyone talks about that. Why do all Catholics talk about pro-gay so much? One, because we have so many priests running around who are gay. Okay, but shelve that for a second. They'll put it under the table because it's so easy to talk about. Oh, I'm not a pro-gay Catholic. It's like, well, okay, it's obvious, it's non-debatable, it's not really relevant for 98.5% of the population. Why the heck are we talking so much about it? It's irritating. There's a great line in Frasier, one of my favorite TV shows, where they say, someone accuses Frasier of, oh, you're trying to talk about this, as in harp on it. And he says, no, this is what I'm trying not to talk about, which is really what people do when something's awkward or true. We're trying not to talk about how ubiquitous, widespread, and destructive the force of feminism is. No one's willing to say it. It's like, they just can't. Feminism really is this one proposition: never, ever, anytime, for any reason, at any place or any circumstance, criticize a woman, right? They even say abortion's a man's fault. It's like, you have the legal and the moral single onus. A woman has to go in, sign the dotted line, kill this, get this out of me. You get into this debate even with other anti-abortion people, and they're like, really, it's the man. I was like, see, that's the sickness. You're trying to make everything the man. Sure, there's dereliction. He shouldn't be having premarital sex, but this has happened even in marriages. A man who's married to a woman in our sick feminist society can literally have sex with his wife, and she can kill the baby without his authorization. That is feminism.
I think when people
First
hear,
wave too.
I know that when some women, many women maybe, are hearing you say that, I just want to be their advocate so they can hear what you're saying, because I think what you're trying to say is good. I think that what they hear you saying is, women, you are the problem, and you just need to fix this weird feminist thing you've got going, and then we'd all be okay. Is that what you're saying?
This is a sizable portion of it, but the men being, the problem with men is there being Adams, and the problem with women is there being Eves. Here's why, in a certain...
So a woman would say, why not just speak to the men then? Tell men to be
Of course,
strong.
because they're feminists. So they say the first rule is always vest even a female criticism in the form of a male criticism, which is what you're doing there. You're codifying it. No, here's the thing. There's a female half and there's a male half, but assess now. Who's incentivized to keep going more? Because men are running around like betas. I'm hearing them getting yelled at the beach, Disney World, the grocery store, the library, the market, the parking lot. It's out of control. I can't believe other people just aren't being struck by this.
Do you see this, Donovan? Do you see what he's talking about? Don't stop recording.
Sometimes, it just depends on the situation and your surroundings, I believe.
Yeah.
It's more of a cultural thing.
Sure. I just mean in the pop. It's not literally nonstop. Like, we're not hearing a man getting yelled at by his wife now.
Like, whenever you see a man and a woman together, that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, no, they're on the roof. Yeah. No, just anytime you're surrounded by a large enough sample class of men and women who are typically married, but even couples will do the trick. There will be at least some of this badinage going, and it's just nagging. It's nagging. It's nagging. Half the time I want to go over there and be like, I'm sorry, can you be quiet? Like, you have to be quiet. You can't just yell. You can't just be a bully.
So
women, because there's a power interest, and because the culture takes over. Politics is downstream of culture. We all, come out of the womb saying this now. Yeah. But Breitbart's right. So now that it grew into a political animal, it's a cultural and a political animal, and it's interacting with some sort of preternatural thing. Eve and Adam even had this feminism. Logically, it was Adam's misstep first. Ontologically, then, the feminism of Eve kind of took over, because look at who's being incentivized to do what. The men don't like it. They don't like the power struggle because they're the ones that have been thrown under the bus. They're not the mutineers. So the reason that you have to address the females first, I tell these men, quit being betas, take control back. You're whatever. You're built for this. Women aren't built for this. It's a laughable. It's not so laughable. It's ugly. It's an ugly sham what you have going on now. But But men are incentivized to, they're kind of like, what can I do? That's what they all say. They want it. The mutineers are the ones that are incentivized. You know, they're Captain Barbossa. They've thrown Captain Jack under, you know, their dominion at this point. So the politics and the culture continue the loop. Now they're incentivized. They're told this is normal. They like a little bit of the power, even though they're unhappy from it.
I saw a dude walking down in Manhattan last year. He had a shirt, "A woman's place is in charge." What would you say to him?
I just don't talk to guys like that. I mean, it's just like, dude, you're hopeless. You're hopeless. I mean...
Virtue signaling to the highest degree. Like me, affirm me, affirm my masculinity.
Yeah.
But not too much because I'm a man and I suck.
Yeah, that guy is not, he's got no pull. I mean, like literally, this is not Andrew Dice Clay stuff, the Catholic version, that's bullshit. You know, like, this is not macho stuff. It's literally just women are being lied to. It's I think the last thing I said is the key to it. It's that's why you have to address the women, because they are they become the bullies, as ironic as it is, you know, with little T-Rex arms, as my wife says. They're how are they bullies? What force is
this message would be received so much better if your wife was sitting there.
I know, but that's another mark of the feminism. So I'm writing this feminism book, and people say it's got to be a woman to write it. I'm like, oh, no. It's got to be a man to write it, because we're the ones that have been thrown under the bus. We're the ones who's...
Yes, but...
That's like saying Captain Barbossa's got to write why, you know, he should give power back to Captain Jack. It's a captain first mate thing. This is why law is adversarial. You got to represent your own interests. They're the ones that are kind of taking your diamonds.
Your book will appeal exclusively to men, don't you think?
No, I think that's just humans with brain. I mean, that's the lovely thing about men and women is we both have the same. We are both
desire for what?
For truth.
Yeah.
Right, and it's truth
and
it's
harmony within a relationship.
Yeah, but I mean, people that don't want to make the natural law argument because you like just Scalia used to say, the late great, like, yeah, because we could never debate about what's natural law. That always kind of irritated me when he would say that, but fine. For your mostly Catholic audience, I promise you, okay? I promise. I would take my oath on it.
No, here's what we'll do.
It's there in the Catholic magisterium. It's not debatable. Yeah. Men and women are not equals. Men are the heads of the household.
Sure. No, of course men are the head of the household.
The mutual submission thing of JP2 really confused a lot of people. You can make, I mean, there's
that's Paul. That's not just JP2. Paul says be subject to one another.
Yeah, but that's not mutual submission. Being subject to one another. Subjection just means you're literally thrown under to throw something under. Paul doesn't mean literally at all. You look at the passage, and that's just one. That's just Ephesians. Look at Corinthians. Look at any of the Pauline literature. You can't literally be under one another at the same time. He's saying figuratively, a man is subjecting his life to the woman, not because he's always risking his life, but because any day his life is forfeit, right? But that's not like, oh, okay, so men, I've heard women try to say, okay, so men are in charge only in the act of like when they're subjecting their life to like a robber. No. Men are, he says, submit in all things, women, to your husbands, clearly. Then he says, men, be subject to your wife, like be good to them, right? That's the overwhelming force of what he's saying. To put this term mutual submission on it is really where we started getting off the boat. There's no such thing as mutual submission.
It's kind of like what you're saying is, what you're hearing John Paul II saying, whether he was or wasn't, is let's be mutual bosses, co-bosses.
Right,
it's like Jim and Mike.
Yeah, Michael Scott. It's like, and then what's the first thing that happens in that set of episodes? Is literally Mike. There's a power struggle,
right?
And Michael, but they, I guess, from the perspective of Dunder Mifflin, they actually both were at that point co-bosses,
right?
Co-managers.
Yeah.
But the first thing that happens is Michael's trying to say, "I'm the manager, you're the co-manager."
Yes.
And Jim's like, "No," and then they start arguing over what we call fields of legislation in the law. Michael's like, "That's a big picture thing, so I'm trying to co-opt your field of legislation," and Jim's like, "No, this is actually my thing." I forget how they titled it, but. No, it's not equal. That will happen. It will make for an unhappy marriage. I mean, we don't have to belabor it, but
sure,
man.
No, I agree.
Man, it is everywhere. It is the central ill of society. It's destroyed the households. What else would Satan use but to destroy, to make the first mate try to turn the first mate into 98% of households into the captain. First mate's not equipped to do the things the captain
So
does.
housemate and captain. Is that what you said? Captain and who's the other one?
First mate. Just ship him.
Yeah, but to use that analogy, you could
stuff.
say that the first mate's trying to turn the captain into the first mate, and the captain is trying to turn the first mate into the captain. Like there's also some yielding of one's strength to one's spouse.
Which you see in Adam. Yeah.
And how much of this has to do with the man not being properly formed or kind of introduced into the world of men and.
A lot.
Yeah.
But that's all I'm saying. That I think the most important distinction that we made here today is the men are kind of incentivized. And I don't want to name names, but I mean, I know people, lots of people in my life as well. It's basically everyone aside from me and a few of my best friends that don't have these kinds of marriages, which are nightmarish.
Yeah.
That, you know, they're like, well, what can I do? I mean, they'll ask me, like, what can I? Yeah, the man will like, I want to be the leader because I talk to him.
And again, for those listening, he wants to be the leader, not to dominate, right? It's
a weird assumption. Most people don't want to be a leader.
But that is the
to
assumption.
dominate.
That's what people are
That's
just assuming. It's the
feminist,
worst intentions.
That's the, you know, Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, a little bit, not much.
That's the community organizing kind of fed thing to say. Like, no, I mean, he wants his position. That's like, this is your show. This is the Matt Fradd Show. If I started saying, so welcome to the Tim Gordon Show, today I'm going to interview Matt Fradd.
I would have went with it.
Then,
no.
No.
Cut.
No, I mean, think about it. Think about if I really did that, because that's really what women have done and been encouraged to do.
It would be insulting.
It would be insulting. So if you were like, well, dude, I'm trying to take my show back here, not to dominate you or to make you feel like less than a person, I'd be like, why the hell would you think that? Yeah, of course, I'm out of control doing that. Yeah. You don't even have to say that. It's just literally, it's your show. Yeah. Your name's there, and I'm psychotic for trying to do it. Okay. That's the kind of madness, the kind of madcap society that we live in.
What's that Aristotelian or Thomistic principle? The mode of the receiver is.
You give it.
People receive according to their mode, right?
Yeah, people receive according to their mode.
So my point...
You give according
my point is, and maybe we can wrap this up. Maybe I'll say one thing and then you say one thing and then we can move on from this topic. But my point is just that people, if you say, like, men are supposed to be the bosses and women, I am saying that most of the problem is yours and feminism is the total problem, I feel like a lot of people just won't be able to hear it. And that's my fear. So my fear is, even if you had something good to say, which I know you do, is my fear is that people won't hear it because of the way you're saying it. And also I think that there's just been such a breakdown in who we are as men and women that I see this being both of it comes from our woundedness. Forget blame for a second. I feel like the boy has been wounded. He hasn't been fathered. He hasn't been taught what it means to be a strong man and to give of his strength. The woman has been wounded. And so when they come together now, there's almost like this mutual wounding. And very often it leads to a passivity or a anger problem, right, on part of the man, and for the woman, maybe I'd say anger, bitchiness, a hardness on part of the woman.
Certainly, certain bitchiness. I just got back from
this
Disney World.
Anyway, so I'll close that. I just think there's this mutual woundedness, and so. Yeah,
I say a passivity on the form of the man and an activism on the part of the female. When proper activism is male, right? Like you're saying about even the male and the female components.
The sexual act. Rise to the occasion. Give of your strength.
Sure.
Yeah.
So men know how to be active and leaders without. It's very unnatural for a man who's been well formed, which, like you say, all men. We live in the age of absconding fathers. So men are walking around hurt and wounded and acting passive when they shouldn't act passive. It's very unnatural. Women are walking around trying to be active, and it just comes across like a angry small kid.
Can I be the one to you finish? Sorry, and then I'll say something really offensive. Go.
Good. Oh, okay. I want to hear this.
I didn't mean to.
No. But it is the age of absconding fathers. Like you keep saying it, I keep agreeing with it. There's both halves.
Yeah.
Adam was sitting on his ass or like twiddling his thumbs or whatever. Eve took over the duties, interacting kind of publicly with people at the door, serpents at the door. And this is feminism. This is the heart of it. So there is a male component to it. All I kept coming back to, that maybe you weren't agreeing with 100%, is who's incentivized to keep up their part in the mismatch, in the mesalliance with the serpent. There's a political well now. There's political capital behind women continuing to go. Whereas I talk to lots of men about this, like, dude, you need to take control of your household. You know, this is what you're born to do. This is your vocation. You're either a priest or a priest of the household. And they'll say, I'd like to, but how? If you say this to women, they don't want to give up power now.
Yeah. Maybe in a shallow sense, they don't want to give it up. But but as opposed to like, let him love you and actually fight for your family and take charge so you can relax and be loved. It's so hard to be loved though when you've been hurt. That sounds like a song.
It does. It sounds like a country song.
Sounds like a bad song.
Yeah.
All right, where do we go from here? This was great. We've barely begun this interview. That's what's great about long interviews.
Yeah.
Maybe the Taylor Marshall thing. How did that start? You have a show that you do with Taylor Marshall that's now affectionately become known as TNT. For our listeners, like I know many of our listeners already know what it is, but like when did it start? What's the point of it?
Yeah, it started last summer. He was interviewing me about the Catholic Republic, my book. Okay. And then I guess people liked that, so we did a couple more shows. And then the Catholic Church is like a wealth generator in terms of people in this spin cycle of news and smut and tabloid. He just kept getting me back throughout, I guess, August and September. Hey, let's do another video. We just started texting. And then I got to the point where it's like anytime some new nugget of the summer of shame came out of the nugget machine. Yep. If we're talking chicken. We'd kind of dial each other up and we would know, okay, let's talk some shit. Yeah. And and then we kind of formalized it later in the fall. But it was, I mean, let me just say this. In 2013, when Pope Francis assumed the papacy, I never trusted him. I was never a fan. But the news saying there's a lot of odd stories that just didn't jive right. About once a month, you'd hear a story that didn't jive right. Mm-hmm. And I don't forget, stories that should not have been. To say, Catholic families are reproducing like rabbits, that's not a normal thing to say. A normal dude doesn't say that accidentally once. Mm-hmm. A normal Catholic faithful son of the church doesn't say that accidentally once. I've never heard you say something like that. You'll never hear me say something like that.
Even jokingly, maybe. I wouldn't say it.
Well, jokingly, it's just funny because it's a sex joke.
I wouldn't. But usually when people joke about it, they joke to make a point. So even if that's what this Pope Francis
if we're joking, we're like, hey, I reproduce like rabbits. It's fun or whatever. But he's saying it in a pejorative way, or that we talk too much about abortion. That's like, in 1859, all the abolitionists in America were talking too much about slavery. It's like, well, they hadn't got the job done yet, compadre. Why? How could we be talking about abolishing abortion, which is a graver evil than slavery, right? Yes. From a natural law perspective. Yes. Too much before the job is done. So he said those things relatively early on, and so I never trusted him. But it was about once a month, the spin cycle for the first 2 years. Then in between the two synods, 2014 and 2015, it became about one a week. Really odd stuff. I was reading 1 Peter 5. They had really good extraordinary and ordinary synod
I'm pretty
coverage.
sure they have a disparaging article about me.
Do they?
Yeah, let's look it up.
Go for it.
You keep talking.
Is it Steve Skojic?
I don't know. Let's see.
I like Steve a lot. See, the thing about me is I talk a lot of shit about ideas, but I like all these people. I like you. I mean, same thing with Voris. When Voris came on your show, people were so worried. I'm like, he's the nicest guy.
Who were they worried for, me or him?
I don't think the worry was physical harm. I think they just thought they'd been told he's mean and whatever.
And you saw the intro to that, right? Like the intro, for those who haven't seen it, it was me just saying, a lot of people crap on Michael Voris. What if we just talk to him? Yeah. And maybe he's wrong, maybe he's not.
Maybe he's nice even. Yeah. No, I saw that. That was cool.
Because it just amounted to a bunch of ad hominems. Like, Michael's so angry, or Michael's he's too like this. So maybe that's true, but is what he's saying right? Because if it's not right,
that's what you said.
You should bless the church by starting a blog pointing out the errors of church militant. That would seem to be a decent and response.
That's basically what you said.
Yeah.
And it was good. But I mean, remember, St. Augustine says,
now, I don't agree with everything he says, for sure. I mean, when he called Bishop Barron Bishop Bobby, I thought that was incredibly disrespectful.
I mean, it was a little bit funny, but I mean, whatever. We agree to disagree. I don't know any human being on planet Earth with whom I agree about 100% of issues. Right. I mean, like I said, I'm really close with Steph, That's not because I like
Steph?
my wife. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Steph Curry.
We've
agreed.
literally just met. I don't even know your wife's name.
Yeah. No, my wife. I could just be funning y'all right now. No, or talking about Steph Curry.
You're not
Me
even
and
married.
Steph Curry agree. Yeah, exactly.
You just
I don't
bought
have
that
any kids.
minivan.
Seriously. No, I did have that minivan before we got married.
Okay.
No.
All right. I'm bad at jokes, apparently. Okay, keep going. So, stuff kept coming out every week. You started doing more about Pope Francis. So what do you see the role of, what do you call it, TNT? Is that what you call it?
Sure.
So what do you see the role of that being?
Oh.
Like, what good is that providing to the church?
I don't know. You judge a tree by its fruits and you find out later. But the good, you mean in a consequentialist way or in a
I guess
ontological way?
No, I guess
there's always ontological value of stating the truth, right? Calling out an ill or diagnosing a cancer. In a certain sense, that's like asking.
There can be. It depends who's hearing it.
Cut out a cancer from a patient. Since I told you I'm a hypochondriac, it's kind of like asking what good is there in cutting out the cancer. It's like, well, I mean, exposing rot or villainy or filth and excising it if possible is always a good.
So what if it's not possible and all we're doing is exposing it? That's good too?
That's good too, because I mean, there's a kind of, then we're getting into the consequentialist moment where it's like, okay, what can actually the laity do? Magisterially, in the history of the magisterium, it's not totally clear. That's the interesting thing. It's not, some of these issues are legitimately being quote unquote developed, to borrow the gayest term ever.
Is the word deposing a pope, or not that I'm suggesting necessarily we do that. I think Cardinal Burke though talked about there's nothing in canon law regarding this, but that doesn't mean this shouldn't be developed. The idea that if a pope becomes incapacitated to fulfill his role, like in a prolonged vegetative state, what is the church to do? Right. Is this the sort of thing you're talking about, or no?
Well, sort of. I just mean, okay, first off, back it up.
Yep.
So 2013, the pontificate of what is it, number 266 here. I'm just going to go, like 11 in Stranger Things. I'm gonna call Pope Francis 266. That's what he is. Right?
I don't remember. You might be right, but I'm
It would
afraid to
suck
agree
if I
with
called
you
him
and be wrong.
266 the whole time, then he's like 271. People are like, you're talking smack on
Yeah.
Pope Pius X, bro.
Yeah.
It'll make a lot of people mad. But the point is, having him is some sort of chastisement. I believe it's all but self-evident now. And might or might not be related to various Marian apparitions, whatever. That stuff is unprovable in the sense that would be completely satisfying. The only sense, where you have necessary and sufficient conditions to say this is all but proven. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, but I think it's probable and very likely it's some lower standard of proof, preponderance of the evidence, 51% or better. That this is basically a chastisement for earlier, less grave sins in the life of the church, maybe 100 years ago, not guarding against modernism enough, who knows, not consecrating Russia. I don't know. These are all moderately
throw them out there
guesses.
and not commit to any of them.
No, but I mean, that's what you have to do. We're living through an uncomfortable time.
Yeah.
And I think what I think the main mark of the time is exactly what you said about trauma you or I suffered with our family health issues, our wife or kid health issues. Or what do you want to do in a time of trauma?
Fight or flight?
Yeah, want to hold on that. You want the fight or flight, but the constituent part of that is you want certainty. You're like up or down, give me that. So people were asking you about like, well, Taylor Marshall talks about SSPX. Tim doesn't talk about it that much, and they were asking you to ask me some questions.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
And I saw it on Patreon account.
Okay.
Why not that? I'd say because we live in a time where the only answer in some of these issues, I'm not a relativist, obviously. The only answer that serves is it's just an uncomfortable time.
Yeah.
I mean,
you have to sit in it.
You have to sit in it.
Yeah.
So people on the Latin Mass issue, a lot of TNT viewers just want to hear that I do not go to anything but the TLM. One by hook or by crook, whether it's diocesan or FSSP or even SSPX. And so they'll ask, okay, I don't have an FSSP. I went to Latin Mass when it was in town, but like everybody all over America, the bishop takes it away. Our old bishop took it away, gives it back. The priest gets a cold 1 week, and the bishop takes occasion to say, okay, no more Latin Mass. You're like, what? So when it goes away, we don't have an FSSP. People literally hound me on TNT. Why don't you go to the SSPX? I'm like, well, I'm trying kind of not to weigh in here, but I will gladly do so. I think there's an uncomfortable paradox that arises out of going to a Novus Ordo. I think there's an uncomfortable paradox that arises out of going to SSPX. So where does that leave you? It's like, I go to the Latin Mass when it's there, to be had at FSSP or diocesan. But I don't know that it's any better to say, okay, Novus Ordo is valid, but pretty much in 99.5% of all its instantiations, just horrible. I mean, just awful. The way it's. I mean, I'm traveling around the country. I've gone the last couple Sundays.
You are exactly right. No, it's true. We can't keep pretending that it's not. Whenever I go on a vacation, I step into a church. It's horrible. Felt banners, crap music. The priest telling me to say hello to my neighbors. I have come to worship the God of the universe, and I'm getting
the crucified God of the universe.
Right, and I'm getting platitudes and jokes, and I'm like, why are we doing this? And
I'm not a D-bag. Why would I enjoy this? You know what I mean?
To the point of
try
fight
not to be
and flight. My wife will tell you. To that point of fight and flight, I think we're seeing that in the church right now. So things are very uncomfortable, very tumultuous, and you're seeing some people fight, and maybe, I guess there's the possibility that people, right, would fight unfair. It would turn into gossip. Would you admit this to some degree? It could be. I'm not saying y'all are doing this, but there's obviously a negative side to this side. So what is it?
Sure.
You become too aggressive. You speak about the Pope and bishops disparagingly and mockingly. I need you to concede some points over here before we go over here.
Well, intent matters, but like the Psalms, Psalms or Proverbs said, only the Lord ponders the heart. There's an objective and a subjective component in kind of critical speech, or in any moral act. There's an objective and a subjective component. With critical speech, only the Lord is knowing, okay, is someone reveling in this without a proper teleology, without a proper aim?
But can't gossip be objective? Or does it always have to be based on intent?
Well, remember what gossip is. Gossip is talking about, is passing on information that you don't have a right to which you don't have a right. That would be, there's defamatory gossip where it's false. There's, what's it called? The one where it's true?
I don't know.
There's a kind of gossip where it's true. Detraction.
Oh, right.
Detraction's where it's true, but you shouldn't pass it on because you're passing it on to a third party that doesn't have a right to the knowledge.
Okay, so is
your
argument, though, with TNT that people do have a right to it, therefore we're not gossiping, we're not just throwing fuel on the fire?
Well, it's out there. There's very good analysis that you can borrow from the law on defamation, First Amendment kinds of arguments. It's public knowledge. It's out there. So all we're adding is analysis.
Yeah.
We're not even the journalists going through and doing it. Voris and his squad, I think they do good work, and I would argue that it's good that they're uncovering some of the stuff because there is a public right to the knowledge, what your representatives are doing, what the princes of the church are doing, since they're the higher vocation. But it doesn't really matter for us anyway because we do nothing journalistic. It's all pure commentary on it's all characterization.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've never uncovered one single thing. To be engaged in detraction, you have to be the one uncovering and passing along information. We're just passing along analysis.
Information that's already out there.
Yeah, and our analysis is, by the way, it's always hopeful. It's always like, dude, this is the chance. This is the moment of power. Yeah, we can turn things around now. Under JP2 and even under Benedict, things weren't okay, but they were just okay enough so as to produce a very high activation energy level, where people had a lot of inertia. They were inertiated.
Yeah.
Now things are so bad under Francis, and now there are a few voices out there that are willing to say, this sucks. This is horrible. Our liturgy is a joke.
Yeah.
We're being forced into all these uncomfortable dilemmas. Our Pope is making a spectacle, a joke, a shame of our church. McCarrick, all these homo molesters, they were put here for a reason. That's better to know than just that this is what God's best of the best are there to do.
Just want to back up a step because I talked about those two options, fight or flight. So I think we would agree with this then. I guess like the negative reaction to all of this turbulent time would be just to want things as normal, to get angry at anybody who points out the tumultuous time going on in Rome and everywhere else, right?
Right.
Because you must get people who, what do they say to you? What's the kind of criticism you and Taylor get?
Well, when it's you know how it is. You have your endemic audience, and they get pretty cozy.
Yeah.
It's when you step out. You step out and you mix audiences. I
like this. This
yeah,
is gonna
like this.
I will be off YouTube.
People will
after
be
this.
shitting Nokias left and right, maybe. But I mean, I even helped out at Franciscan, you know, in a capacity or two. I won't say which class, but
sure.
And you know, that's enough of a different audience.
Right.
It's just like yours is enough of a different audience, even though it's generally faithful Catholic at Franciscan, generally faithful Catholic from you, where people aren't used to hearing it. Yeah. So yeah, I guess they just say just the kind of trite, banal things to professors or administrators that bring me in, or you are the professor administrator in this case, Dr. Fradd in this sense.
Yeah.
You know, why would
Fradd.
you do this? This is Meister Fradd.
Yeah.
That why would you bring this mean guy in? And that's usually just kind of babyish mud slinging, and that's always self-contradictory because they're saying this guy slings mud, I hate him, and you're like, are you allowed to say that according to your own credo
standard?
But one of the other uncomfortable dilemmas, just to put the cap on the point, is okay. It's a paradox to go to Novus Ordo, right? Because how is this valid though it's horrible? And it's a constellation that's been agreed on and all that, because I'm traveling around the country. It's the same everywhere in 99.9% of them.
There you go.
But it's also a paradox to attend SSPX. So this is what I wanted to say that might give your audience some. Yeah, this is where, you know, I'm not comfortable going, because even though the Ecclesia Dei did say we can go. But I don't. How is that not a paradox?
Irregular relationship? Because they're not in a state of schism.
No,
but they have an irregular relationship, whatever that means.
We don't know. The church refuses to clarify how regular. They say it's irregular, but that could be a state of schism. It's like academic. We don't. Why will they not clarify? They're intentionally keeping us suspended in this. But forget what you call it. Forget how you characterize it. I won't go because even though Ecclesia Dei said we the faithful could go, could attend, and not incur sin, and even put money in the collection bin. So that's at one time that feels okay, gratifying, and now I can go. But on the other, I know how formal cooperation with grave matter works, right? You take formal cooperation with grave matter, you take on the sin. If this, I'm not saying they are, because I don't know. It's academic.
To be clear.
But just to be clear, if that priest is considered a schismatic, which the church sort of refuses to clarify. I'm not saying I know. He might not be. But if he is, how is this, my act of attending, not formal cooperation with sin? So it's a beautiful liturgy. These guys know what they're doing. The families are bigger. It's like Catholic, aside from some of the sort of chirping sectaries. It's much more Catholic-ish than going to a Novus Ordo. I make no compunction about that. But you're not off the paradox hook. Because the paradox is now there. It's how is this valid yet awful? This is how is this invalid yet, or how is this valid, not licit yet licit for me to attend? You know. So we walk amongst this
confusion.
It's the rabble.
And we're walking amidst confusion in the church while our society is in utter shambles as well. So it's a frightening time for many people.
It is.
And I feel like most of us in an uncertain time look for bedrock. Like we look somewhere to put our foot so that we can find safety, security again. And I think maybe like 10, 20 years ago, people found that in the church. Many people were doing that, you know. They would trust Benedict or they would trust John Paul II. Even if the craziness of their parish was all around them, they had read into the faith or something. Whereas it seems today there's so much confusion even in the church that we're all looking to put our foot somewhere. And I feel like we're trying to bring in other authorities to kind of align with. Do you feel like that? Like there's people who align with Church Militant. There's people who align with TNT, who are probably also aligning with Church Militant. There's people who are aligning with Bishop Barron and others, because we're just trying to make sense of what's in front of us. To me, it's like when you go to the optometrist and they put that thing past your face and eventually one makes sense and you can see.
Yeah.
It's like that's what people are doing.
I don't think I've ever been to the optometrist.
Oh, haven't you?
But I'll take your.
I
I
got
probably need
terrible
to
eyes.
go. Do you?
Click, 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 and then you're like, oh yeah, I can see now. And I feel like people are doing that. They bring in their feminism into Catholicism. They
Right.
bring in their like, I was gonna say worship of Trump, but not worship of Trump, but like Trump can't do anything wrong, kind of into Catholicism, or never Trump or whatever it is. We kind of bring these other platforms in to then look out like, okay, now I feel secure.
Yeah, like a lens.
Yeah.
That's optometry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah. No, I mean I think people do that all the time. I think that is I don't mean this in a cliche way. People bring a lens into everything. But I think that's the trouble with the kinds of imprecise lay leadership which has been foisted on us, is that the laity does not, by its nature, they're not the guardians of doctrine, and they're not careful speakers or thinkers. But the irony of Vatican II is the lay has been asked to take up the mantle of a kind of leadership, and it's an adoctrinal kind of leadership that's attempting to be waged on behalf of doctrine. And so it's, there's some sharp lay cats, but yeah, among the sensus fidelium, the people out there in the pews, even the faithful ones, it's hard not to do that worldview substitution, that you're talking about accidentally. And part of it's just human being in the first place. But it's a mess, man. I mean, that's the fact. I think people just need to say,
then we can deal with it.
Yeah, we can deal with it. It can be dealt with. And I guess I offer a kind of Benedict option. But not just there. You have to branch out more, and people would say, "Well, that is the Benedict
option."
Yeah, no, it's great. But I mean, you just have to make sure, as a man, as a laity man or whatever, a man layman. Oh, a layman. That's almost a term. That maybe
layman.
Some people even say a layman.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that you're like what you're doing with what you've been synonymous with for years with like covenant eyes. You got to eradicate sin from your life. For most people, this means sexual sin. It's obvious.
Given our day and age, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a major thing.
Everywhere.
And I think I think all along, it's just, sorry, I touched my mic.
No, you're fine.
And you got to start there and then branch out. Just make sure you are, as a man, sort of reasonably bound to heaven. And then you make sure your wife and your family's praying habits are, and sacramental devotions and all that are enough to get you into heaven. And then you can start sort of take up the political mantle and start, go to the next valence out. This is subsidiarity.
Yeah.
This is the whole game. But you really do have to start there. And I had to do it. I mean, I had to realize, okay, I always had a naturally kind of close, strong marriage, but I've been married for, almost 15 years. And it's like, once we got serious a couple years in, about our Catholicism, it requires some changes. It's like, okay, we got to build the army, because what doesn't seem to me to be an exaggeration is the idea that this is in terms of spiritual combat, it seems like this is special and unprecedented.
This is war. I think too often we try to understand Christianity without reference to the demonic. And trying to understand Christianity or our lives in Christ without reference to the demonic, it's like trying to understand the Lord of the Rings without reference to Sauron.
Right.
Like, what would you say? Like, there was a ring and it sucked. So they went
You're
up.
like, why is it bad?
Yeah, well, because it just wasn't conducive to the flourishing of Hobbiton.
Right.
And so they got rid of it. And that's kind of what we do. We forget that there is an enemy. And when you read the New Testament authors, because I find the first kind of reaction people say to me when I say, you have an enemy who hates you intensely and wants to drag you to hell forever.
And is much smarter than all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that they say is, well, we shouldn't try and look for Satan under every rock. I'm like, that is not the problem right now. Like, maybe that's a problem at some point, but that's not the problem right now. Like, you have an enemy of your souls who's waging war with you. So, but then what do you say? Because I think that sometimes we can get addicted to the outrage. Like, people get addicted to political news, not just because they're educating themselves so they can be better citizens. They're taking it in like entertainment, and it disturbs their peace of soul that they ought to have. And I can imagine, and I'm not saying you're responsible for this, for putting out that content, or that I am, but I mean, us as consumers of material have to be aware of that. Like, what's the Lord calling me to right now? Like, I'm supposed to be tubing with my kids down the lake, or, just like helping my wife, or, making some money, or playing with my son. And I think we can fall into this temptation of always needing to be on top of the news, either politically or ecclesially, right? And I think that can be dangerous too. It disturbs our peace of soul. We cease to focus on our interior life and our growth in the Lord, because when we can point at the sins of others, we look good. I think that's a temptation we can fall into. And I just want you to agree with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with it in certain small quarters.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to. I mean, I don't think that's probably a trouble for a typical TNT viewer or a Matt Fradd viewer.
Okay.
It's like you said about looking for Satan under every rock.
Right.
That is not the problem nowadays. It's like St. Augustine said, hope has two beautiful daughters, anger and courage.
Yeah.
Right. You can't have one daughter without the other. But anger is not a sin.
Right.
So particularly in times like this, I mean, you need it.
Righteous anger.
So,
You know that, but I'm trying to clarify for them.
Sure.
Right. There's an irrational anger that's a mortal sin.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like saying, okay, well, I'm what do I need to be doing right now? I need to be helping my wife. It would be like saying, well, righteously helping her. I mean, yes, all of these things that you or I are putting forward as desiderata, that we mean in the righteous sense. But my point is that St. Augustine says that he's listing it as a righteous thing. His first assumption is that anger in this context, it would be righteous.
Yes.
Now, there is a quarter, again, of, I think, it's a very small portion of TNT viewers, but it's not the vast majority. In certain kinds of bitter trads, which have earned for themselves a bad name.
I'm glad you're willing to admit that.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
again, I don't know you, so I didn't know your take on this, but they do give people.
My take is just truth, baby. And literally, I mean, these are the ones that are like mad that I say this. So I go to the Novus Ordo and I pretty much just make fun of it, which I don't know what that does. Okay, then why not go to SSPX? I'm like, I already kind of.
Yeah, it's a great way to upset both camps.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I mean, well, no, because most TNT viewers are kind of like, hey, they're kind of like me, I think.
Yeah.
I go when I can, whenever it's there, and it's obviously much better. I mean, this ship has sailed on pretending that Novus Ordo is like a good thing, the way it's done.
I was recently at a Focus conference. Their Novus Ordo is celebrated very respectfully and reverently, which I appreciate. But I had a friend priest who said, do you want to come up to my hotel room and I'll celebrate the Tridentine Mass? Yes. So it was him, an altar server, and me, and I'm just in heaven. I'm like, this in a hotel room is more beautiful than 90%, maybe, of the Novus Ordos I've attended.
I mean, 99. I've never been to a Novus Ordo that's celebrated in the way that people who are trying to be affirmative about it say that you had all those trappings. Why is that?
Here in Atlanta, Our Lady of the Mountains, Novus Ordo, the ordinary is in Latin. It's glorious organ, beautifully done.
But I mean, when you hear hooves, if you're thinking horses, not zebras. And the thing about this zebra we call it the unicorn Novus Ordo is I've never seen one done that's got all the right trappings.
Okay.
I mean, I've never seen one where everyone receives on the knees. I've never seen one where outside of Lent where the consecration is ad orientem, which is probably the most important trapping. I've never seen one without the crappy monkeys music. I mean, I have it like a high mass, but I've never seen one where it's just the priest distributing. I EMs, all that garbage.
How do we? Because we want the reverence, as you say, but you also are willing to acknowledge that there are bitter trads. So how do you do both? Like, how do you lovingly and in like a freedom of spirit and a joyful way, kind of attend these beautiful liturgies without falling into the trap of becoming bitter?
By making fun of shit. I mean, that's honestly, which the bitter trads don't get at all. I mean, literally, like
making fun of shit. That is not the answer I thought you'd give, but okay.
Because people, when they get their backs to the corner, they think that you sound smart by not laughing at something. Like risus bellum est, like laughter is war, and that's the same thing. Like
beautiful.
it's not just coming over, it's not coming over the top with an exaggeration like we talked about. Some, I think, admirable conservatives do it because they have to do it, and I enjoy it for what it's worth. That's not actually what I'm doing, but oftentimes the non-exaggerated best like proposition to offer in rejoinder to a ridiculous proposition is laughter. Like someone comes up to you and they're trying to tell you that the Novus Ordo is good, or that it's controversial to say men have penises, which I guess now is a thing. That's controversial.
Yep.
Buying their premise that the Novus Ordo is beautiful or some ridiculous thing, or the penis thing, that is, even assuming their premise dignifies that ridiculous, absurd proposition. Whereas if you just laugh at it, there's no response to it. Endorphins start flowing in your endocrinology when you laugh, even if you're fake laughing. Another thing I learned in grief, in trauma. Endorphins start flowing just from doing whatever you do to, like George Costanza says, ha. And it's devastating. So I refuse on principle to engage any purely ridiculous argument a more dignified way.
See, I don't
than
think
it
you're being
deserves.
nuanced enough when you say that the Novus Ordo is beautiful, and you're like, that's a joke. I mean, it's not a joke. The Novus Ordo can be beautiful.
It can be. Potency in act, though. I've never seen one done that way. I mean, I in a half-assed way, it was a Catholic my whole life, right? Before, it's not just the last decade. I pretty much went to Mass most weeks my whole life. I've never seen one. If we take seriously the idea that the, lex orandi, lex credendi is a very clear, this is what I meant. It's part of the paradox. So I'm not trying to be overly diplomatic by saying there's a paradox with SSPX and there's a paradox with Novus Ordo. I mean, I think it was designed this way to destroy people's faith. I really do.
Intentionally.
It can still be valid. Well, yeah, with Bonini,
I don't know enough about any of this stuff. Sorry. You're welcome to talk about it. I don't know anything about it.
Pope Benedict, young Pope Benedict, and a few of his homies went to Pope Paul VI, and they're like, look, on this whatever it was, concilium, the little between 65 and 70 when they're writing the new Mass, this guy Annibale Bonini is nuts. And was allegedly told, go pound sand. And Bonini was a very questionable character. And, many say, not just tinfoil hat people, many people say that the reason he became nuncio to Iran in the early 70s was because it was Paul VI saying, "Oop, that was my boo-boo. He really was a Freemason." That's a story that's been dignified time and again by serious-minded people. And he's really the prime architect of it. So yes, again, it's. I think it was smartly enough written so as to be valid. But how come I've never seen one? How come in all the states you do a tour across America, the same ridiculous, disgusting trappings are usually there, And the good Novus Ordo is a unicorn.
So here's a good question for you: you're made Pope tomorrow. What do you do? I'm not saying you need to know what to do in order to justify the criticism, but it's just a fun question.
Yeah,
other than making Taylor Marshal Cardinal and bringing his family to Rome so y'all can rollerblade around in the cool marble floored halls of wherever you live.
In neon. And start saying liturgies in the rollerblades with Let It Go playing in the background. Yeah. No, I mean, I would restore what people call the extraordinary form of the Mass. So I'd probably do away with the vernacular. I mean, so all the angry trads, just when they're getting ready to hit their dislike button, then they can't figure me out. I think I would eradicate. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, because there's one thing, like implementation is different to outcome. So like you can say what outcome you want. The idea of how on earth do you implement that in a church?
Yeah, mainly what I do is just fire everybody. I mean, that's really what the history shows, whether it's a corporation or living organizations. You just get in, you gotta get every tumor out. You gotta get every tumor out, and such a large percentage of these guys are just after the summer of shame, and we're doing remediation. Give me a break. I mean, so many of the leaders of the church need to be fired. would probably need to go to jail. But I don't know about that. You have to
Sure.
run a criminal trial on every single one. But
Yeah.
just fire everyone and literally just take the only people that are. You don't need a college of cardinals that's the size it is, by the way. Undo Paul VI's little rule on
right?
the 80. You have to. No one can vote at conclaves after 80, so that basically, when he did that, it ensured that only the sort of new cardinals would be able to vote after the council. So you pretty much are ensuring into perpetuity that you're going to have only Vatican II Mavins going forward. One stripe or another, a Benedict stripe or a Francis stripe. They're all pretty much guys that were excited about the council, at least at first. No Lefebvre types. Lefebvre's theology, forget the schismatic act, which definitely was a schismatic act. And I don't think there's a lot. I mean, probably what you would do. I mean,
The first thing I'd do is be like, "Where's the tiara? Get it, run!"
Right.
A friend of mine made that joke. I thought it was brilliant. And then I get that Francis didn't want the palace. I'm going to need that. Give me the keys.
Well, do you know how much extra it costs for him to live there? Do you know it costs extra for him to live? All the accommodations he made in that first month of the humble papacy cost more money than
if he had just stayed where they had set up.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, really?
It's probably why he did it. But no, I mean
So why not just leave the church then? Like, why not? I mean, because I know why I don't want to leave the church, but there would be some people who are listening and they have maybe a very godless view of the church, right? They don't believe Christ's promise when he said, "You are Peter," etc. And so they're thinking, well, as you're saying there's a rather hopeless view of the church where you say, well, they're only appointing cardinals that are kind of for this agenda, so it'll never get better. What's your response, I guess, to the despondency people are feeling?
I mean, I haven't. Nothing we've talked about constitutes a single reason to leave the church. I don't care if there are a bunch of homos in the church. What I mean, that's honestly, maybe I'm just a jerk or something. But I mean, that's their soul, and it's like we ought to convert. Literally, princes of the church, their fate is worse than death if they are not faithful. Right, it'd be better to have a millstone tied around their neck and sucks for them, and it sucks for all of the they're the stumbling blocks that they're leading away, and that's why I do try. I have a ministry, I work pretty well with young people, and I hope I brought more than a few around. I know at least a few, and I mean the church, all the reasons that exist for being in the church, that it's the one true faith, it's the one non-ridiculous religion. Sorry, Protestants, even including that new form of Christianity which came about 500 years ago.
Why do you call it ridiculous?
Just because it's just all made up stuff, right? I mean, it's based on voluntarism, which is the will leads the intellect instead of the other way around. It's based on cutting up the Bible, based on contradiction. It's just religion is really ridiculous when it's false. Can people say that? When Marx says religion is for dumb people, it's the opiate of the masses, he's not really wrong categorically, right? Most of the world's religions, say there are 10,000, 9,999 of them are ridiculous. Like, this is ring the bell, stand on your head, do a twist.
Oh my gosh, see, dude, I can't tell if you're being hyperbolic or if you just legitimately aren't nuanced enough. Because I would push back against that and say
they're silly.
But clearly, some are more silly than others.
Absolutely.
Which means some are approaching to the truth more than others. So to call them all ridiculous seems.
But anything that's not true. See, but it's not that I'm being hyperbolic, and it's not that we're actually even saying different propositions. It's that you just come from the opposite angle. You're saying the Fulton Sheen ecumenical thing, and I love Fulton Sheen. Yeah, but we've all heard that for 50 years now. Anything that's not 100% truth is ridiculous in at least one wise, right? And let's face it, when Fulton Sheen did the circle of truth,
I don't know this.
It's 360 degrees. Okay. Even Satanism has like 1 degree of truth because there's
Satan
devotion.
Exists,
Satan exists. Sure, but most of the world, so all but 3 of the world religions out of, say, the 10,000, this is how I've converted many atheists, by the way. 10,000, how do you know you have the right one? That's at best 1 in 10,000. No. Because, literally, you have the superstition of polytheism, which is 9,997 of the world religions in history. Only 3 of them claim a god, and it's always the case that the later one says it's actually the same God as the earlier iteration, Judaism to Christianity to Islam. Islam is self-evidently false. Judaism and Christianity are pretty much left, right? The only ones that are really left. We're talking about two. Judaism without Christianity. Oh, this isn't an apologetics show, so I am running through it, but it's self-evidently false. We're 2,000 years later, and they're still waiting for that train. So some version of Christianity. The only strains of Christianity that are non-ridiculous, right, are the other sacramental episcopal forms like Orthodox. And that's not terrifically important at the end of the day, distinguishing between, I mean, people still have modes of credibility, people still have modes of getting to heaven.
Right.
So
people have the scriptures, they're not ridiculous. That's not what you're saying. You're not saying the person who's been given a Bible and raised as a Baptist and is trying to love Jesus with the best he's got. You're not calling that.
No, I was talking about the Eastern Orthodox. I'm saying they have a pretty cool liturgy.
But I go to an Eastern church. You know that?
I did know that. I did know that. Yeah, you're Byzantine, which is amazing liturgy. No, I wasn't saying any I have lots of Protestant friends too, but I was saying that the belief system is ridiculously self-contradictory. All I'm saying is that people, Catholics and Christians, and even just conservatives in general, need to get a new approach to the world. And the new approach is, okay, like, if you want to be ecumenical, like most religious people are ridiculous. I mean, go look at any of the polytheisms. Polytheism, which is 99.9% of religion, are ridiculous. And yes, there's some aspects
is Catholicism
of truth.
If God doesn't exist. We're eating a cracker and calling it God.
Of course. But the difference is that it is not more than ostensibly. Catholicism is demonstrably true. It's demonstrably true, right? I mean, it's actually the heresy of modernism. We have the one faith, where it's a heresy to say that your belief is ultimately based on faith alone. You know, our faith, Pope Leo XIII taught, getting it down to one God that you have certain reason alone knowledge of is necessary, right? It is a teaching of the church. Anything else is the heresy of modernism, to say that faith plays a larger role from there. Once you know there's one God and helping you to sort out what his properties are, whether he's triune or not, what strain of Christianity, now that Christianity has this half-life called Protestantism, which splits, twice a day. There are going to be 2 more sects of Protestantism by the time we finish this interview.
As there may be in Catholicism, though, because I think Protestants look at us when we criticize their splitting, and they're like, y'all like to pretend you're divided, but you're not. I mean, you're maybe unified under the Pope, but there are so many fractions within Catholicism that are warring right now.
They're good factions, right? Because when you're a magisterial faith, the way the one true faith is, there's the binding authority to kick people out.
Right. Which isn't being used, maybe.
Right. It needs to be used. But when we have a schism, schismatics are out.
Yeah.
So that's not actually factionalization. That's just you're out of the game. You just got DQ'd.
Or you're just living within the church and have not yet been kicked out. Yeah.
But there's a difference. When you have non-magisterial faiths like Protestantism, there's no binding authority to say what's right.
Yeah.
It's just literally you split off more and more.
Yeah.
But the ultimate point to stay in the truth in the faith is, one, it's the one true faith. We haven't talked about any because there's lots of too many homo priests and bishops, sort of their problem. And their flock, when their flock is not being redirected, right? When they're being taught that basically super happy Jesus is like the slam dunk Jesus, not on the crucifix. I call him. He's got like a basketball. I think the church I went to in Orlando, he actually had a basketball and was doing like the Shaquille O'Neal slam on the thing. It's sort of sweet because I'm a basketball fan, but they probably should change that.
Yeah.
But when they're not being directed, like, hey, you can't contracept, you can't. You have to do these things and you cannot do these things. That's a problem for those people, and that's where the ministry like yours or mine matters very much. Just telling them, and that's where I find directness to be most helpful. Is just no, don't do this, do this.
Let me try and sum up what I think your approach is, because we've been chatting for a while now, and I know I've been pushing back and you've been pushing back. I think what you might be saying, and then you tell me if I'm wrong, is we've tried nuance, like we've nuanced everything to death, to the point that people have no idea what we're talking about. So what you're trying to do is, I'm going to just say it as hardly and as truthfully as I know how, and then I'll backpedal and I'll explain what I mean after if you're so jarred that you can't accept it. Is that what you're doing? You're kind of leading with the punch and then...
Just following Jesus, man. He said, let your yes mean yes and no mean no. Anything else comes from the wicked one. I mean, so that's just... But I mean, yes, that's right. Unless what you mean is the exaggeration thing. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I literally
and there is a difference between hyperbole and exaggeration, right? Like you're speaking a truth.
I don't think I'm doing either, though. I mean, I honestly...
You don't think you're being hyperbolic?
Not at all.
But when you say things like every other religion is ridiculous,
every other religion
we've just talked about that, and you've
not
admitted that they're not equally ridiculous, and so to brandish them all is ridiculous.
That's some modus tollens, though, isn't it? Well, because I didn't say equally religion. Every religion bears the quality of ridiculousness as Catholicism would.
But see, now you're being nuanced. See, you are putting it.
But that's genus to species. Right. This is not backpedaling. That's just of course, it's how you write. You give the generic first, and then you get specific under it. Topic sentence. Yeah. So, but that's not even what. Again, I feel like I'm throwing him under the bus. He just sticks out in my mind. That's like Milo. That's not what Milo does, where he say an exaggerated thing and then backpedal it a little bit and then kind of put your last sentence on, and but it's mostly true.
He might be trying to convey something true, but he is intentionally inflammatory. When he dresses up like a Muslim woman and gets on stage,
it's hilarious, though. Come on,
but it might be you might find that hilarious, but he's clearly not trying to be nuanced for the sake of truth. There,
come on, everyone finds that hilarious. No, that's a different kind of truth. There is such a thing as a performed truth.
Right.
I don't want to judge that because I think there's a lot of value in it. It wouldn't be good if I did it because it's not my thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying it's not my thing. That's all. I think there's value in having someone like Milo out there.
Yeah. He seems to be on a journey of his own, doesn't he?
He is.
That interview he did with Patrick Coffin was excellent. When I listened to that interview, I was nervous to hear Patrick Coffin interview Milo. I was like, I like this man. Oh, I wanted to hug him. I wanted to pray with him.
He's very nice. He's very nice. So he's the first one that published Catholic Republic. I don't know.
So you've got to tell us about Catholic Republic too.
Yeah. So I don't know if Sophia wants me talking about it, but he's a truth seeker.
Oh, hang on. So Catholic Republic is
my book.
Your book.
Yeah, he published it.
Oh, he published your book
before Sophia Institute. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's like, I love this. He's like, I love this.
So you've known him for a while, or?
No, just through that, I defend. With Church Militant did a great interview with him before Pat Coffin did that interview. A year before. Some of the Church Militant fans were shitting Nokias, so I just wrote. I a lot of times will write little defense articles for Church and Militant on their site. Mm-hmm. I've done it with lots of entertaining instances, and I said, here's why it's good that Church Militant interviewed Milo. When I was basically saying what I'm saying now, I think he does a lot of good work. He goes around telling a bunch of secular fans of his the church is right about everything, and they're like, "You're being exaggerative." He's like, "No." Mm-hmm. And then he hits them with all this church history. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And he's this gay dude that goes around flamboyant, and he's like, "No, but this I'm not backing off. I'm not being silly." And it's a good combo. It's a good 1-2 punch. Mm. So I defended him. He wrote them. He was like, "Hey, I love this defense article." And then I just started talking to him, and I was like, hey, I have a book I think you'd love, because I'd been kicked off of Catholic Answers Press. The Catholic Republic, Why America Will Perish Without Rome, was originally contracted on Catholic Answers Press.
Oh, wow.
Just too extreme form or whatever,
Did they end up publishing it all, or did they just see the manuscript?
No, I mean, I didn't even know this could happen, because this is my first book. They saw the manuscript, they kicked it back after I produced the thing. Then Vorse was going to help me publish it, and Church Militant put it on their imprint, but something we're very friendly, and that wasn't his fault. But I was bitter. I wanted this thing out. I think it's an important book, and so I ended up sending it to Milo as a kind of third or fourth option. He was like, "We love it. We're going to do this." On his imprint, Dangerous Books. He printed Pamela Geller's book on the assassination attempt, in Garland, Texas. Mm-hmm. I think mine was only the third book that
did it do well under that publication? Or?
It came out in February of last year, and then they literally the next week they were starting to say, well, we're folding up, basically. So no, from a sales perspective, no, but it got into a lot of people's hands. That's how Marshall knew about it.
Okay.
It was in the form of the Dangerous book, and then, of course, Sophia Institute Press said they wanted to re-release it after they knew about me with Taylor Marshall. But if not for Milo, right? And you know, I've had conversations with the guy. He's a sincere guy.
Have you chatted with him about living in a homosexual relationship, or are you not there yet?
No, because everybody
does.
Forrest did, Pat Coffin did. I think Jordan Peterson. He gets it everywhere. Like, bro, here's the thing, bro. You're a good dude. I want to talk to you about something. He's like, I mean, it would be like, I hate saying cliche things.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about, you know.
Well, it's like anything. I mean, you've got to really, what's that cliche, since we're speaking about cliches? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And if you're just meeting
I made
the guy,
that up, by the way.
Did you? Well done. That's incredible. It's spread far and wide. Yeah.
I use it with the feminists.
Okay.
They know how much I care.
So, okay. Now, sum up your book in a couple of sentences for me. The Catholic Republic, or Catholic Republic, because there's going to be people who want to buy this.
Yeah, there should be. It's an important book. No,
so it's being published again with Sophia?
Yeah, it's out with Sophia Institute Press, and it's basically that the story is that America was founded by basically Enlightenment-friendly Protestants. The Enlightenment is a secular left rejection of the natural law. The Protestant Reformation is a religious right rejection of the natural law. How are these two sides, the main two sides that are and have always been visible in America, they both reject the natural law? How do they wind up producing natural law documents like the Declaration and the Constitution in a natural law republic? A republic is really a creature of the natural law. And the idea is that they're plagiarizing from Catholics, which they were. You know, Jefferson et al. Called themselves the Neo-Whigs. They were reading the Whigs in England from a century before, you know, from about the English Civil War to the Glorious Revolution. You know, Locke wrote that 2 treatises in 1689, the year after the Restoration of whatever, William and Mary. And basically Locke, Algernon Sidney, guys like this knew that their own Protestant Enlightenment thought was insufficient to the task of doing republicanism. I mean, if you go read Locke's philosophy, it's a rejection of natural law, right? I mean, he literally, his philosophy, his epistemology, his metaphysics destroys the natural law, as all Protestant thought does. It's a rejection of natural law, as all Enlightenment thought does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I start out in the beginning and I just say the natural law is these 3 things: nature as moral and free, rejected by Protestants because of their view of sin, rejected by the Enlightenment because of their view of there is no such thing as sin or freedom. That's prong 1. Prong 2 is nature as intelligible. To be a natural law thinker, you have to believe nature is intelligible, that you can learn from and about your environment. Protestants don't think that. All that's really lasting in terms of veritas is the Bible. You can't learn from creation for a Protestant. That's paganism, as Karl Barth said. For Enlightenment thinkers, they don't think that anything beyond the 5 senses, you know, in a humane way, is truth at all. You know, so even mathematics is too invisible. Even the principle of causation is too invisible or religious for Hume. They don't believe in intelligibility. And then nature as goal-oriented.
Yes.
Protestants kind of agree on this one, but because of prong 2, they can't fully agree. They believe Jesus is Alpha and Omega. They're good Christians, but they can't, since you can't learn anything about the Creator from the creation.
Well, they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't go that far.
They do.
I mean, Romans 1 shows why that can't be true.
Right, but they don't really you don't hear them throwing around Romans 1.
They don't throw it around. I don't know if a lot of them would. I mean, this
natural theology.
This dates back to who? Scotus. Duns Scotus with his rejection of metaphysical proofs of the existence of God and coming to know God's existence, and the idea that the will isn't attracted towards the good, and
his response to what would be later called nominalism, you know, univocity of being and all that. But the Protestants are really more influenced by the actual nominalism writ large. Luther studied for 11 years at nominalist Erfurt. He really was a nominalist. He really the modern scholarship
it
is
is
showing
interesting.
he didn't even really believe when he entered seminary.
Oh,
He just
really?
did so. They say
Because he was
had
afraid of going to hell? What, Luther?
Oh no, he did a duel.
Oh, that's right,
He
yeah.
left, and he was going to have his head chopped off for dueling. And so he said, I have to go to this damn monastery. So I don't think he ever really went to the monastery. Because it doesn't make sense, his behavior between 1517
Yeah,
and
he's
1520.
crazy. Luther's crazy.
He's nuts.
Calvin isn't. Calvin is a sophisticated Protestant.
But his theology is even more nuts. I think Calvin sort of buys into Lutheranism and then tries to dignify it. But Luther ends up, Calvin is, you have Calvinists and Zwinglians arguing with Luther about the Eucharist.
Yeah.
Luther's just a schizo. Yeah, Calvin knows. Okay,
There's a bumper sticker. Luther's just a schizo.
He says different things like different days, whereas Calvin is more like American Protestant theology, at least in the early days of the Republic. But Calvin, I think more nakedly would say, nature is not a teleological place. You can't learn about the Creator from the creation.
Or we can't. Yeah, okay, maybe. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know enough. I just can't help but look at what the Bible says about how we can come to know the existence of the Creator.
Yeah, but they're
from
chopping
creation.
up the Bible. They cut out, 11 books of the Bible. Luther added the word alone to the Bible, faith alone. It's man is justified by faith, he literally just adds words where necessary.
To your point about ditching the natural law. Yeah, I agree with that. I was talking with a Protestant pastor friend of mine who I work out with, who I have a lot of great respect for. He's a good, virtuous man. I was just trying to explain the Catholic Church's teaching on, sodomy, And as soon as you start appealing to natural law, it's like they haven't even thought to do that. Well, the sexual act has an end, or two ends at least. If you thwart one, we can talk about that if you want. If you thwart,
I thought you were making a joke. But
oh no, I wasn't. Yeah,
Two
yeah,
ends.
but it's interesting that they can't, because as soon as you agree with that, you have to throw out contraception, which we also think is disordered, and they can't do that.
They did until 1930, too.
Right?
Though. Yeah.
Lambeth Conference.
Lambeth. Yeah, but I didn't know that until a couple years back.
Yeah, 1930, I think it was.
So that's it was 1930 that they finally got it. That when you're recoiling a bit when I said, look, this is ridiculous. The demands of religion are immutable; they can't change.
Yeah.
So that's ridiculous that you had a whole new moral teaching 1,930 years in. Yeah. And they just live with that. No, they live in that space.
You're right. It's ridiculous
it's absurd
for people to break off the bark of Peter. But it doesn't mean they don't hold truth, and it doesn't mean that people who are raised now as Protestants are guilty of the sin of Luther from apostatizing.
Of course not.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to say.
But no, it's not ridiculous to be like, hey, all I was raised with was, they don't know that their religion was made up, by basically a guy that might not even have believed in Jesus in 1517. They don't know that. They're just raised in that same as we were raised by mostly non-believing Catholics of the previous couple generations. But what's ridiculous is when you show it to them like an equation, hey, just moral teaching on this major facet of sexual, reproductive health, reproductive ethics, just changed after 1,930 years, no Christian anywhere, and then they're like, yes.
Or if they want to say no, they have to say the church was wrong for the first 1,900 years.
Right.
Either way, you're in a pickle.
That's right, you're in a pickle, but they don't care because, the church was wrong about so much. They've kind of had that.
Right.
So it ends up being incoherent.
Yeah.
That's all I meant. Is
I think in 20 to 50 years, you're going to see almost every branch of Protestantism accept homosexuality.
How can it not?
Yeah, just like it did with contraception.
It's all based on evolution.
The only reason it won't be able to, or the reason there'll be some evangelicals who hold out, is because whereas contraception isn't taught against explicitly in Scripture, unless you want to point to Genesis, but not in the same way that homosexuality is denounced in the New Testament. So that would be the reason I think you're going to see some evangelicals not denying the Word of God, but I think you're going to find a bunch of other evangelicals trying to get around it.
That's a good guess. I think that's right. But the evangelicals have always been good just because they're usually Southern Americans, just kind of holding the line there. But like I said...
That's like Mormons. Mormons are the greatest people I've ever met. I've never met a Mormon who I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm always like, you're amazing. Can I come and be with you and your family?
No, they're friendly.
Yeah.
They're friendly, and they have pet issues. And homosexuality, we end up talking about a whole lot more than the other gender ideologies. Mm-hmm. But I mean, gender ideology really begins with feminism, and it's just much more uncomfortable and much more ubiquitous. It's sweeping. It's everywhere. Right.
And it's not as I feel like we're being yelled at about the LGBT stuff, which is why I think we're talking about it a great deal.
Yeah.
You know, if feminism was addressed to us in the negative way, I know you say feminism is negative, in the negative way that, it just came out in the open, then we would be talking about that a great deal. But I feel like it's kind of underneath the surface that's kind of led to all of these things.
Feminism won. So feminism achieved the goal. I mean, literally, it's just now all households are just split.
It's like the same reason we don't talk about no-fault divorce anymore.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's just, except no-fault divorce only got about 50% of households, right? So that's a good win. But feminism clobbered everything. I mean, if you were to rank all of these leftist ideologies from the devil, right? I would say feminism is by far the most successful one ever, because it literally, if we had 100 dudes in the room, I would say probably 98 of them just married dudes that are not abusive, not criminals, whatever, just from semi-normal couples. 98% of them would have what I'd call a feminist household. I mean, I just with 97, maybe 96, I don't know, but 50% of people, because we hear this number all the time, get divorced. That's a good win for Satan with divorce. But I mean, then we're talking about, okay, so homosexuality is much more easy it's a sin that's easier to get away with now without the oppressive force of culture. Everything I was saying earlier about feminism it's just it's in the water. Now just everyone, even Elizabeth Warren, Democrat candidate for president. She said,
unplugged from all
she
this
wrote
stuff.
A book called Two Income Trap.
She did
in the early. I mean, and it's literally her points are amazing. I never thought I would say.
She'll be raked over the coals for her logic.
Yeah, right. Well, she wasn't. She's now backed off it and said, I think this was a mistake. But it's like your logic is inescapable.
Yeah. Now, what do you say about those families who feel like they have to have both parents work? I know in perhaps the majority of cases that just isn't the case, right? And that we have to learn to do without. But are there any situations where you could see it making sense for both people to work to support their family?
Of course, the church makes it really clear, the man is injured, or whatever, even if it's like a mental injury, just can't work. Of course.
Okay, see, here we go. This is the nuance. This is good.
Sure.
This is great. Because in the beginning, no one heard that. No one heard that. Everyone just heard men are boss and women shouldn't work.
But what do you think you lead with? You lead with rules and then you get to exceptions.
Right. And that's what I said earlier. That's what I think you do. You lead with the rule and then you nuance. Whereas
Sure.
I think a lot of us
But that's not exaggeration.
Nuance.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
No, but I mean, okay, I'm going to start with the exception to the rule. But you haven't told me the rule yet.
It's like, Brian Regan?
Yeah.
He's
hilarious.
He has this bit about how he went to get a driver's license and it said, use your thumbprint here. If you do not have a thumb, it's like, why does that need to be there? Like, how many people come in without thumbs?
Like everyone, apparently. It's sweeping the nation. It's thumbless drivers. No, I mean, that's what I mean. You have to state what the rule is, and they're like, look, obviously we're not talking about single women. They have to earn a living. Or if your husband goes thumbless,
or something,
say his thumb falls off and he can't
he's a
work.
Thumb model,
He's a right, he can't. Hand model like George Costanza. Then obviously, but that's not doing anyone any favors. Exception makes bad law, as has been said in the common law for many, many years. Law makes good law, and then people. I mean, this is what preteens do. I mean, we get this on TNT. We get a couple of these. What about me? What if my husband was a thumbless Uber driver, and what if his thumb was the way he liked to drive? It's like, all right, then I guess you can work if he's now a thumbless out of work. The norm. 99% of people, and that's also why I object to talking more about trannies than the situation that most people are driving home from work in a couple hours to confront. We need to take back our families, and I mean that as men. And we need. Oh, so here, because everyone's chomping at the bit for me to say, talk shit on some men. Get rid of the porn. That's where you've just been phenomenal. Porn makes cucks out of men, right? It makes them. By the way, testosterone levels, doctors are reporting at an all-time low. I mean, in testosterone is really interesting in terms of what influences it. It can go up or down based on, even the exercises you do. You run too long, your T levels start going down. You get barked at by some, Dr. Pepper swilling mammoth of a wife at Disney World, your testosterone can drop. It can be behavioral. So, and it is absolutely fitting that doctors are reporting they're seeing the lowest testosterone levels ever. Men need to do some squats, do some deadlifts. Both of those exercises raise your testosterone. You need to get off the porn, right? Which makes cucks a man. You know, get off the fornication if you're not yet married. Be like a boxer. Have like a boxer's ethic. No women while training for a fight. Society will accept that oh, that's cool. A boxer can't copulate while he's training for a fight, but they'll never accept a priest's ethics. A priest is a lifelong celibate. They like the discrete, finite, fixed goal and a military goal. Well, that's how we need to talk about priests and unmarried men. Need to be like a fighter. Men need to be strong. Men, I think, need to lift weights and be prepared to protect their homes. Everyone's throwing around Ephesians 5, and they're like, okay, well, I'll give you mutual submission means this. It's like, well, is your husband even prepared to defend the home? No. So it's like, yeah, men are really derelict. It's just, I didn't want to buy into the premise that you always attack men first.
Yeah.
I mean, women have a lot to atone for in our society. I mean, how many babies have they killed, How many babies have been killed by mothers?
Paid someone to kill, yeah. They paid a hitman to kill.
They paid a hitman to kill, but in law, I got into a talk with Father Dave Nix about this, and we were kind of debating this on TNT. Who's really there? It's not debatable who's in conspiracy, crim charges. The principal, the P, is the person that hires the hitman to come kill their loved one or whatever it is. The predicate, the person that attaches, as a co-conspirator is the hitman himself. So I'm only bringing it up because this feminism issue is so vested into the organism that we don't even talk about it anymore. Just everyone's got feminist presuppositions. Alfred North Whitehead said, you judge an age not by its suppositions, but by its presuppositions. Think about that for 30 seconds vis-a-vis feminism. It'll rattle your brain. Because that's all it is your presuppositions. Is like, and I just try to disallow all those idiotic presuppositions. Like, oh, did your wife work? Of course not. Of course not. And they're like, oh, because of you have a crippled child.
I like that. That's better than, she works in the home, though. She works more than me.
This
is what most men say.
That's the Puritan thing. I'm like, no. I mean, literally. And do you, I'm sure when you get home from work, you do the dishes or whatever. They'll say obnoxious stuff like this. I'm like, no. I mean, we each take our own sphere pretty seriously. She doesn't come to work and start like teaching my theology classes either. When you take your job seriously, you don't want someone else messing it up.
Tinkering around.
Yeah, tinkering around with it. And I don't know. It works. Nature works really beautifully.
There's a reason Jordan Peterson has become outrageously popular. And there's a reason I see women reading his books. And even though the media is going to tell us all that women are deeply offended by him, it's just not been my experience.
Isn't that right?
It's not. No, women love him.
So that's what I'm saying about the directness. Yeah, I think it sells really well, and we're told, it doesn't sell. You got to lead with this, lead with that. It's like, he's the paradigm instance that is like, people are hungry for the truth. I don't often quote Bernard Lonergan, right? Because he's a council father, Jesuit, Canadian, but he said that there's a pure desire to know in human beings. Amen. And it's animals don't have it, and children even have an unburnished form, but grown adult men and women, everyone wants to know what's common between us. Our brains work very different. Our intellects work very differently. That's not one of the ways. That's one of the ways there's overlap. We have a pure desire to know, and it's always attractive. Yeah. So when you're saying, why say the truth? It's like, the truth is an inherent good. In rare instances, it can be leveled in a bad way.
Or it can be received poorly. So just because it's true that, certain bishops and cardinals have done bad things, it would be inappropriate for me to tell my children who are 4 years old that. And,
of course.
And likewise, it could be doing harm, but you wouldn't necessarily be responsible for that. I think people have to take responsibility for the information that they're choosing to take in.
Certainly. Shit, dude, I feel like I need to take a shower after I read even some of the McCarrick or Cardinal Bernardine stuff. It's like, I have to stop. This is just gross.
Yeah.
You know, you read the stories, I'm like, I don't even need this much detail.
This came out last August. Well, before August, it was in July. But last August, I took the month off the internet, as I say repeatedly, because I want people to think I'm awesome. And it wasn't until the third week of August I was at Divine Liturgy, and our priest, who's such a holy, manly dude, was talking about the scandal, and I looked over to my wife, I'm like, what's happening? And she's like, oh, right. I've just been like reading the Brothers Karamazov and smoking my pipe and loving life.
Yeah, you really hadn't heard.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I didn't
funny.
hear. I was totally, I didn't touch a keyboard. I got rid of my phone. I literally had nothing for a month.
That's great.
It was delightful. I'm going to do the same thing this August.
You read Brothers K in a
I
month?
read it in 20 days.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's
And
my,
I couldn't
it's my
do
favorite
that.
novel.
I couldn't do that now.
Yeah,
If you gave it to me now while I have the phone and the internet and everything, there's no way, because I'm so distracted.
yeah.
So I'm going to do it this year again. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll read the Brothers again. I think I prefer Crime and Punishment to the Brothers Karamazov.
Really, I prefer The Idiot to maybe
I
either
started
of them.
reading that. Haven't read that yet. Maybe
Oh,
I'll read
it's
that
so
one.
good. It's so good. Prince Michigan. He's the
Yeah.
man. And Demons is really good to know what's going on now, because he wrote about socialists and their tactics.
Yeah.
Socialists in the church.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Crime and Punishment too, but I don't like it as much as The Idiot. But Idiot
Idiot
probably
is your favorite?
Idiot. Idiot. Idiot.
Idiot was one of his later
moved
books,
me.
right? He wrote that after Crime and Punishment as a kind of counterexample to Raskolnikov. He was
Yeah,
like the
that's right.
Christ figure.
Yeah, it sounds.
Yeah, like
sounds
what does a
very
perfect
literary.
figure look like
Yep.
in today's day and age?
He
So maybe I'll
was.
start reading that one.
I have a picture of Raskolnikov at my desk
Do
at
you?
work. Yeah, he's like brooding, sitting
Oh
like
my
this.
gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, he is kind of the anti-Raskolnikov. Though so is Sonia in
Oh,
in
I
that
love
book.
her.
Yeah, she's great.
That bit at the end where he walks out after finally confessing and he sees her. I can't read that without crying.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, men and women. It's all.
Yeah.
I mean, Dostoevsky knew this stuff. He's the greatest novelist in the history of human beings. So he knew this. He knew how beautiful it is, the redemptive value of men and the redemptive value of females. I mean, for all your crypto feminist viewers, there are probably many out there, according to my argument in the new book coming out, who are sort of still sitting there fuming in their chairs. The greatest of the saints is Mary. How did she do it though? Did she bark orders at people? I don't think she ever once did that. She got married, had babies,
Baby.
baby.
Be
Sorry,
clear.
yeah, the Protestants like yeah. No, I mean, she got married young, and this is the other thing that our youth need to be told to marry young.
Can I tell
Pursue
you?
your
Oh, I told
vocation.
you. I texted this to you. I want to share it to
Do
the
it.
people. I texted you what I did yesterday. I spoke to 1,000 teens, and I was talking about, they had questions about sex and like dating in high school, and I said, if you're dating in high school, you should break up with them. Because I just thought, this is me trying to be abrasive. I'm going to get in there with you. Because if you date and you're not yet ready to marry, the likelihood that you won't fornicate is almost zero. You might be an exception,
Sure,
but you probably won't be. So unless you're ready to get married, don't be dating.
sure.
So
It's just what
I
the
want
church
you to
teaches.
break up right now with, if you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you should break up with them. And then tweet me that you've done it. So I don't run my own social media, somebody else does.
Or
But
yeah, no, I
We're going to do that again. There was no slap.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
But
yeah.
I couldn't, but the point of all this was they all stood up and they cheered. They were all cheering. And I was honestly surprised because I'm like you. I like to needle people. I mean, you're saying you're not being hyperbolic. I like to be a little kind of like, and just to see what they'll do. And I couldn't believe it. And I don't know where that came from. But
I don't, maybe they heard something different.
yeah, that's right.
Wait.
Y'all should date and fornicate and it's okay.
Like, dude,
Maybe
can we
that's
go
what they
do
do.
it right now?
But all the parents were like, yes, praise you, Jesus.
No, but here's the weird thing. You want to hear something? Because I went to law school when I got back in the States, and practiced 1 year, hated it, came back full circle to teaching, which is what I did before I went to Rome and then law school. When I got back into teaching, I've been back 5 years now. The things I thought parents would get mad at me for, even though I'm in a conservative area, like gay marriage, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
or all the snooze stuff. I mean, it's so boring. The only thing that's got me in trouble when you think I'm untouchable on this because I'm just teaching what the church teaches is that. And
Is what, the feminism stuff?
No. Even the most, only insofar as it touches this. I just say, hey, I say to my teacher, my seniors, hey, yeah, you should pursue your vocation vigorously. You know, show them the statistics. The earlier you get married, as long as there are other indicia, but there are other factors.
Yeah.
Get married early, just like you have seminarians. By and large, you need to go pursue the seminary early.
Because you're formed in those years.
You're formed in those
I
years.
was being formed while I was married to my wife. I was 22 when I got married.
Right.
I'm really glad.
You're
I did
younger
that.
than me. Yeah, I wish I'd gotten married even a little young. I would have been willing to get married younger. My wife and I were each dating other people, but we're super close friends. I was 24. Yeah. But I always felt kind of old. I tell people, my parents got married when they were, my mom was 19. My parents have a beautiful marriage, in terms of how they relate to each other. They're super close.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what parents get mad at, is teaching basically that. I wouldn't tell someone to break up, because I think a senior in high school is the perfect time to be dating. Just say, if you're not about to get married,
Well, that's a good point.
right after you get
I did
graduated.
clarify it with that. I said, unless you're in a place where you can see yourself getting married and you have the financial means and all that.
Yeah, but even then, you don't need many financial means. That's
people,
part of the lie. People are like, well, you have to have a 401k or whatever. Here's the funny thing is, I've lived about half my married life in grad school or law school, one of the two. We were in Rome, bashing around the city poor. You don't need shit. All you need is love.
I hadn't been to university until I got married. Then I got my undergrad and masters.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. So then
we were beneath the poverty line in Canada together, in Ottawa. We couldn't afford anything, but it was glorious.
It's
we
glorious.
loved it.
It's beautiful.
And we were happy.
Your kids.
We're happy now.
The kids thing. You want to clarify. I feel like when we first got married, and all I had was just a cheap job. I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of wish I'd been married for undergrad. But now the parents in college will say, well, they at least need the undergrad degree first. I'm like, why?
No.
You go through it. They're like, okay, graduate degree is different. I was like, so you're saying the level of classes, a 100 level class versus a 500 level class matters?
Yeah.
They don't think about. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to remove support. I'm like, why would you remove your support if you're willing to pay your kids tuition and room and board? Did you know these places technically still have married student housing?
Right.
Just keep supporting them at whatever level you're willing to, whether they're married or unmarried. It's beautiful to get married when you're 22, 21, 20. This is when you're best to get married.
Yeah.
You get spoiled later, and you both get in weird habits.
Yes, totally.
But young people should be encouraged to, okay, you don't want to be a priest, you don't want to be a celibate for life or whatever, fine. Pursue your vocation as a father, as a mother, vigorously, and do it as soon as you can. All it takes to get to know someone is about, 3 to 6 months.
Do you not think, though, that people are a lot more immature today than they were 50 years ago?
They are, but they are because they're getting married later. It's not the other way around. But I was a douche before I got married. I don't mean in the usual sense. I was never really running around chasing the skirt like a total douche. But I just mean I was a goofball. I was still getting into mischief, fist fights some of the time, just ridiculous stuff for even a 20-year-old, much less a 24-year-old. And here's the other thing. I have parents that'll say, okay, why can't they date for 4 years? Why isn't that, why does that go against church teaching? There are several reasons. Yours is the main one. It's a probabilistic one. You don't believe they're going to be celibate for 4 years. It's too hard. You're hanging out with someone you're attracted to. Why would you
should want to have sex with them.
You should want to have sex with them.
have sex with them. You just should get married first.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. So they'll say, well, why can't they date for a while first? It's like, well, there are a lot of good reasons, but here's the thing. You dating, situation A, a young man and a young woman dating for 4 years, waiting unnaturally long. And then let's say they eventually do get married and it doesn't ruin the relationship, which I think dating that long can ruin even a good relationship. But let's hypo this out. Okay. Assume for the sake of argument they do get married. Let's say they get married after a normal amount of time, sometime within the first year, if they're courting properly and really finding out whether they're a match. And then the last 3 years of college, they're just married. Okay, compare them to they're married day one here, first day after graduation. They've been married 3 years here, first day after graduation. Grace is cumulative. It's going to be a much better marriage here. It's real. I mean, again, at the end of the day, a lot of the parents of a lot of the students that are complaining about this don't believe grace is real, but grace is cumulative. You get grace from the sacrament of marriage every time you copulate.
Glory.
You get extra grace. You get extra.
It's beautiful.
You're better, and it's a fundamentally, it's a naturally and a supernaturally different, better relationship for all those 3 years. You're better people. It made me a better person to be married. My wife would say the same. It's men and women are beautiful.
Yeah,
together.
if I look back at my 22-year-old self getting married, I mean, I'm just like, oh, brother, buckle up. Like, you don't know what you don't know, and it's about to hit you.
It is.
But as you say, what are you going to do? Wait until you're ready? When's that? 40? 52?
You're less
60?
You're
When are
less
you
ready then. You might be less wild when you're 40, but except you're less ready
right.
because
You're
men
more malleable
especially
at that point.
totally more malleable, and that's what I mean. Even my wife and I going and being poor in Italy so that I could get a doctorate under Father Kevin Flannery. That we're still pretty malleable.
Yeah.
We go on trips with the full family in the car just across the country
That's awesome.
at a moment's notice. But it's still harder to do than when we were younger and more malleable. But I mean, yeah, men, especially, people want to hear at this point in the interview me talking smack on men. Men especially, they get at 30, 35, 40, they're getting really selfish, if not married. They get into weird stuff like robots. Like, dude, you touch my robot or whatever. You meet a 35-year-old dude that's never been married. Since I've dished out plenty of generalizations. They're weirdos. Yeah. Men become weird. Women become. There are plenty of people out there saying how women become after 30, but I've spent enough time dogging on them. Men become completely obsessed. You could never have kids. They're like. It's like
I've seen that too. You touch their stuff, you accidentally like break something. Or
the cup, you move it this way. I'm like, I have stuff I like, but my kids are gonna mess with it until you can chasten them. You can say this is really important.
To a degree.
To a degree.
But they're irrational almost.
They are
irrational, non-rational maybe.
They are, and you can't do it, and it basically shuts down the path permanently for marriage for a lot of people to wait that long. It's unnatural. And also look at when Taylor didn't believe me in a show. We had to check it afterwards. I was right. Look at the fertility levels of women by ovulation, by egg count. It's dropping by 20. They're super fertile between like 15 and 20. Yeah. Between 20 and 25, like they lose like 80% of their eggs or something. By 30, they're gone. They're basically, it's done. It's almost done. Then 35, 40, it's like the last remnant.
Yep.
But except it's like a logarithmic drop-off, and it begins way earlier than people want to talk about. It begins biologically with puberty. So this is what people need to do. I'm writing a second other book, by the way. It's Rules for Retrogrades. Like, talk a lot of smack, talk a lot of negativity. This is what people need to do. 50 rules. I'm also co-authoring this with my brother.
50 rules.
50 rules
Forget
for
5
retrogrades.
Rules.
Yeah,
50.
Here's what you need to do. Well, this is one of them. The young need to be instructed to marry, to be chaste, to ditch the pornography, but men to be manly, women to be womanly, and to get married young. And to eradicate every last vestige of feminism from those marriages. That's the other book. But this is how you retake the republic. This is how you retake the church. You need to do it household by household because it's the single-celled society.
Let's close with just a question. Have you seen people in your life kind of take these rules, put them to practice, and seen their lives get better? And not just better in the sense that happier, more fruitful, holier?
I've seen it work for me. Yeah, I mean, these are the rules put together by me and my brother just from like, wow, I was a douche in one way or another before I got married, and he'll tell you the same thing. And these are all rules. I mean, a lot of them are having more teeth. The men in society need to have more teeth. It definitely follows in that vein. But kind of the Peterson thing. A lot of them follow in the phenomenon of why is Jordan Peterson being so direct and yet experiencing so much success? It's because, and it's different. He's got a totally different ethos, but directness sells, and direct confrontation sells, and not trying to dumb things down or pretty them up for confrontation with our enemies sells. And people just want to hear that. That's why people love Trump. You know, whether you love him, you hate him, or you're kind of
you
indifferent.
can't stop looking at him.
Yeah.
You can't stop watching
can't.
him.
And he's not, but it's not pure exaggeration. Now, he uses a lot more kind of Milo-esque exaggerations sometimes, but a lot of the time he's just saying the honest truth, and everyone's like, that's definitely true. I've never heard a Mitt Romney type where everything is overproduced and overwrought, and even the hair that's out of place was like designed there and they pulled and did, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like everything Trump's just like, I'm just going to say the truth. And people like him or hate him, but it works.
But they can't stop watching him. I think that is the thing. They're drawn to it. Well, thank you very much, dude. This has been awesome. Let's shake one more time.
One more time.
Appreciate
Thanks. Keeping it real. We'll bring it in for the real thing after this. That's only for the Patreon.
Yeah, that's right. All right, thank you so much for watching that very interesting and hopefully educational episode with Tim Gordon. We're about to do something really cool right now. We are about to go into a whole nother segment that is only available to our patrons. We have a whole team here at the Matt Fradd Show that makes Pints with Aquinas and the Matt Fradd Show work. If you want to join Patreon, you'll get access to all this stuff. So we spoke just then. It was about 15, 20 minutes. We spoke about big tech companies who are cracking down on conservative voices and what our personal plans are for the future. It was a fascinating, short discussion. 20 minutes, I guess it's not that short, but it was pretty fascinating. And if you're a patron, go right now to patreon.com/MattFradd. You can watch that whole thing. And if you want to become a patron, you get free beer steins and signed books and stickers and access to all this online audio content. And it's terrific. And we do try and give you a lot back. Go to patreon.com/MattFradd right now, patreon.com/MattFradd. Start supporting us for $10 a month. I mean, it's like a couple of lattes a month, you know? If this show means a lot to you, if you're getting a lot out of it, go to patreon.com/MattFradd, start supporting, and you'll start getting access to a bunch of stuff, including what we just did then, the post-show wrap-up video. Thanks so much.